day and a new week. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
So, in politics this morning, Rachel Reeves will prepare to deliver her first major speech, and she will confirm a £20 billion black hole in public spending. That's a bit of a surprise.
Well, the new government looks set to plug the gap by cutting down on government spending and selling off unused buildings.
Meanwhile, the Conservative leadership race heats up with the deadline for applications closing this afternoon. Suella Braverman has confirmed she will not run, as she calls her party traumatised with Kemi Badenoch launching her bid overnight.
Well, joining us now is former advisor to Boris Johnson, Oscar Redrop. Good to see you this morning, Oscar. And what are we expecting from Rachel Reeves' first major speech today?
Well, look, I mean, running up until this morning, there's been relatively kind of peace and quiet times, I would say, politically. But this was always coming. Strategically, the Labour Party were going to go through every single government building, room you could imagine, find all the skeletons they could find and point to them and say, the situation is so much worse than we imagined. That was always politically the strategic right thing on their part to do.
Was it always politically their plan?
Yes.
To say, we're broke and therefore we have to kill her and have to raise taxes?
Exactly. And a lot of the briefing over the weekend and last week, for most normal people, that won't particularly cut through. The worry I would have with this speech today, if it is just merely kind of finger-pointing and kind of doom-mongering, I think people will go, hang on a minute, we had a general election. You pointed the finger and told us how bad the government were, maybe fair enough, for the past, 3-4 years. You're the government now. What are you going to do about it? And what they're going to do about it, I think, is a mixture of things. I think the stuff on, public property and really high-paid consultants, cutting the numbers there, getting numbers down, being more financially literate in that sense, I think it is good stuff.
I get all that, Oscar. I genuinely do. But we've been down this road before. I remember, I think, when the Thatcher government came in, they sold off everything as well. I thought, well, there's nothing left to sell off. So, but apparently we have got other things to sell off, which is fine. But we need to create wealth. Labour do preach about creating wealth, but unless you're doing, and I'll just pick something, fracking, right? I'm not suggesting it, I'm just saying, but I can see how if we introduce fracking, that you add money to the economy. There's money where there wasn't money before. What is the equivalent of fracking? What do we have anything that would create wealth for this country without cutting things?
Well, this is the real issue. And actually, if you think about it, unusually in many ways for a Labour Party, they stood on an election, of real kind of prosperity and pro-growth. I think the slight strategic mistake that may come in the speech today is that really, I think in the heart of hearts, a lot of people think it's rolling the pitch for tax increases, which is the absolute antithesis of that kind of going for growth, imaginative thinking, creative growth, government thinking you were just hinting at, Eamonn. I think we might get the opposite today.
But there is a school of thought that if Rachel Reeves were to increase taxes, she would just call an emergency budget. We wouldn't have this speech today, which perhaps suggests that she wants to look at this audit, doesn't she, instead? She's kind of biding for time.
Yeah, well...
Is there hope on the horizon with that, or do you think it's inevitable?
Well, that's a really good point, and we'll actually know she'll set the date of the next budget today as well. Again, though, the only problem for me is that ideas very thin on the ground from today, and Rachel Reeves, when I think the press conference comes around, and I'm sure she'll take questions, the main question for me is, this is an internal audit, and I think that's something that people should have a healthy, objective degree of scepticism about, because it does suit the Labour Party to say, everyone back off, give us a bit more time, everything's a mess, it's 10 times worse than we ever thought it would be. That suits them. And it does also, I think, with the tax rises, I mean, it's interesting. I remember Rishi when he lost to Liz in the leadership, and that feels like a million years ago now. But videos that came out where he kind of slightly warned about unfunded tax cuts with Liz's plan came to fruition. And I do wonder sometimes if we may look at Rishi's it's in their DNA. Tax rises, it's what Labour do. I wonder if in the months ahead we'll look at those videos of Rishi during the election campaign and say similar.
Do you know, also, Oscar, it's the easy option. It is the easy option, especially when you hit taxes. There's a term for this, and I don't know what it is, but the working person. We're not going to hit the working
people.
Yeah, in terms of VAT and income tax and whatever. But we'll do taxes like inheritance tax and capital gains tax and all that sort of thing. And then no one really cares about that because that doesn't really affect the majority of people. So they will get away with that. But you could always argue they had always intended to do that. Where I would have admiration for, and I would just love to know what people at home listening and watching think about this. If you had laid out 20 options in front of you about what you could cut, there are areas, there's no point saying we'll cut social services and we'll cut from the NHS and whatever it is. But look, I mean, I will go on about this foreign aid budget till I'm blue in the face. How you can justify a foreign aid budget without politicians, which they all do, they all lie and they don't really say what a foreign aid budget is. A foreign aid budget is not about foreign aid, it's about buying influence in foreign countries. So
soft power,
soft power, so you can dock your ships and you can do various things and whatever it is. And that's what it's about. And they all act as if they care about people and that's what the money's for, and you'll be depriving these poor children and whatever it is. I'm all for feeding starving children. I'm no difficulty with that. But all this soft power that you're talking about. So basically, why doesn't somebody come up with an idea or tell us this morning and say, where would you cut the money from? We can't cut it in defence. We can't cut it in teaching. We could go on forever and tell you where we can't cut it. But where could you cut money? That's the thing.
Well, I think there's an imaginative thinking government is really lacking at the moment. And I think that managerial style, it doesn't always tend to tease out those areas that people haven't thought about, whether it be growth, like you said, or actually genuinely efficient cost-cutting measures. Because you said new governments come in and they go, right, we're going to cut costs on consultants or sell off a bit of land here. And it doesn't really touch the sides, as you said. But, I mean, this is the first political Punch and Judy moment that we've had of the new government. It's all been very nicey. I think Jeremy Hunt will want to give a really robust defence to the government record.
Saying they knew there was no money. They knew there was. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. When the Conservative government came in after the Tony Blair government,
it was
they got the note saying there's no money left. We're broke. We're always broke.
Politics can be really interesting and fun, but sometimes you notice there are quite dull, kind of cyclical kind of patterns to these things.
Should we talk about the Tory leadership contest? Because Kemi Badenoch, the favourite, has been even before she officially threw her hat in the ring. She's now launched her bid, saying back to Tory values. What does that mean anymore? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, look, at this stage, I think it's kind of troubleshooting and identifying the problems. I think that's where the Conservative Party are at the moment. They can't overstretch and start, making grand plans, these candidates, or big promises. I think in order for it to be essential, the analysis that these candidates make, it has to be hard to hear. There has to be hard truths about what happened over the last few years. And I think Kemi's effort is that if you read the wording of it in the Times, it's decent. It's pretty. It doesn't pull any punches.
You're
it's
convinced.
Very much, well, I mean, I don't want to give away I'm very much the bring back Boris sort, which is accepted, but living in fairy tale cuckoo land here.
Pins stuck in my eyes. What an Egypt he is. How anybody could look, how an educated person like you. I understand the image he creates. Don't get me wrong. I totally get all that. But that man is an idiot. And why anybody would want him to rule the country, I do not know. And I don't understand why a working class person in some part of the country feels they have anything in common with a posh, out of touch public school boy. I really don't.
Well, moving forwards, without dragging back over time, moving forwards, I am not well, it'd be interesting. You just referenced off air, actually, that opinion piece in the Express saying not convinced they're the big enough names.
Correct.
Which Boris
I'll give you that.
That would be my only.
People don't know the difference between Suella Braverman and Kemi Badenoch. They have no idea who Robert what's his name? Robert
Jenrick.
Who is he?
That could be a problem. That could be a problem, and you do underestimate that kind of cut-through name recognition. And we're all quite obsessed with politics, and we read the paper. But for most normal people who just actually have a lot of busy stuff in their lives, there's a lot more important often than personality politics.
So could we bring Boris back? Could we bring Boris back and say, look, you're in Egypt. Everybody knows you're in Egypt.
I'll get him to the studio so you can tell him that.
I would tell him.
I know you.
I'd pay to see that.
No grasp of detail. absolutely no grasping detail. He has his moments. He definitely has his moments, there's no doubt about it. And I do accept that in terms of box office, he's it, right? He's OK. But how do you make sure that he's the main man, but he doesn't make any decisions?
Well, that's the age-old.
Oscar, we're almost out of time with you, but I just wanted to ask about Suella Braverman not putting a hat in the ring. She says that it's a traumatised party and they're not willing to hear what she has to say.
I mean, look, so Suella was pretty effective in government on historically, actually. I know her time as Home Secretary was difficult. Look, I think the reality is that there are a lot of similar candidates, actually, that are, and it's quite a crowded field this time around, and maybe she didn't quite have the momentum that she would have wanted, because there are certain personality types who go, I'm only in it to win it. I'm not there to get a nice shadow, Home Secretary job, or I'm in it to win it. And she strikes me as that type of person. So I think she's probably made that call on that basis. There's so many of them, and I just hope the Conservative Party do it in a way, because this is the first hurdle of competence. Let me remind you, if the Conservative Party get this wrong, and it's kind of there's too much bloodshedding, it's chaotic, it's bitter, then in the eyes of the public, they would have failed that first test of calm competence. We understand we're in opposition and we're going to treat this with dignity and respect. So they need to get this right.
Why do they need 3 months to get it right?
Well, I think if the tone is right and it's sensible and it's serious and it's grown up, then that longer period of time necessarily isn't a bad thing. It probably needs to happen before conference, at conference.
Well, that's not going to happen.
Otherwise,
is it?
I mean, no one's listening to the Conservative Party right now. That's the other thing they need to be humble about and understand. So in some ways, there isn't a rush, I don't think.
OK. So much to talk about there, Oscar. Excellent. Come back and talk to us again. We'll get some reaction coming in and hopefully we'll be able to debate that. But for the moment, thank you very much
Oscar.
indeed. A new report has revealed NHS funding of IVF has reached its lowest level since 2008, and access has become what is termed a postcode lottery.
Well, our North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper sat down with one former patient to hear her story.
I just know I'm made to be a mum. So to me, it's happening. It is. I am going to be a mum one day. So 4 of them pre-filled syringes.
Last year, Katie West began her first round of NHS-funded IVF.
Where are you putting it?
Despite the injections, the hospital appointments, the nervous waits, Katie remained positive.
They rang me on the Monday morning and it was a lady from the lab and she said, I'm so pleased to tell you. And as soon as she said that, I just screamed down the phone. I was like, oh my God, my little miracle embryo. It's like, it's going to work. It's happening. This here is a tube where they just shot it out and I got to watch that on the screen. It was magical. And honest to God, that was the best day ever.
However, a week later, Katie began to bleed and she knew that something was seriously wrong.
I just had a gut feeling because during the week I was waiting, I felt like I could feel it implanting. I had all these little signs and symptoms, but then when the bleeding started, I felt like I just knew that it was over.
Devastated, Katie knew her one chance with NHS funding was over. Because of where she lives, if she ever wanted to try IVF again, she would have to pay.
A new report has found that in 2022, the NHS funded just 27% of all IVF cycles in the UK. That's the lowest level since 2008. And what it means is that for almost 3/4 of patients attempting to conceive that way, they're forced to face the financial burden alone.
The report also found a staggering difference in how a person's location can affect their chances at funding. For Katie, she was told she would only have one chance. Yet just a few miles down the road, other women she knew were being given 2 or 3 opportunities for their IVF treatments to work.
I think it's amazing we have NHS, and we do get funding. But I just think one try isn't enough. It's not giving you half as much chance, even to get your body and mentally prepared for it. I just think, I think 3 tries we should definitely be all entitled to.
Commenting on the so-called postcode lottery of IVF funding, the Department of Health and Social Care told GBNews, everyone should have access to the fertility services they need, regardless of where they live. There is clear clinician guidelines making sure there is equal access across the country, and we fully expect these to be followed.
So I'm now home from my egg retrieval.
Yet, despite these guidelines, for many women like Katie, their first chance at IVF was their only chance at IVF. Sophie Reaper, GB News.
OK, 16 minutes past 6 o'clock. Let's have a look at some of the other stories on this Monday morning.
Israel is allegedly drawing up plans for a retaliatory strike against Hezbollah. It follows a rocket strike over the weekend that killed 12 young adults on a football field in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, which is being blamed on Hezbollah. The government's defence minister has vowed to hit the enemy hard, while allies called for calm, amid warnings that an escalation could lead to full-scale regional war.
Metropolitan Police says its officers were not involved in the alleged arrest of Tommy Robinson. Protesters gathered outside Downing Street in Scotland Yard earlier, demonstrating after his supporters said he was detained under anti-terror laws. Now, it comes after a complaint was made when a film was shown at a central London rally on Saturday in breach of a High Court order.
The acclaimed Irish author Edna O'Brien has died at the age of 93. Her literary agent said she passed away peacefully on Saturday after a long illness. She was best known for her portrayal of women's lives against repressive expectations in Irish society.
If you have any Edna O'Brien stories or tributes you'd like to pay, get in touch with us today, have your say, and we will reflect those. An amazing lady who I met a number of times, and I spent a day with her once at her home, and she just was incredible. She led a very tough life, very difficult life as well, and everything came out in her books, where she changed so many people's opinions of so many things.
Oh, she sounds like an amazing lady. So do keep those tributes coming in, gbnews.com/yoursay. Now, at 18 minutes past 6, let's have a look at the weather with Greg.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Plenty of sunshine across much of the UK, turning increasingly hot over the next couple of days, particularly across England and Wales. And you can see a cloudier start across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland first thing this morning. A weak weather front is producing some rain across the far northwest, largely the Western Isles, but also fringing western coasts into the afternoon. But plenty of sunshine for the vast majority of the UK, perhaps an isolated shower across northern England, southern Scotland, but temperatures rising in that sunshine, 25 to 29 Celsius towards the southeast, low 20s further north and west. Through this evening time, this weather front does just push a little further eastwards, bringing some patchy light rain largely to the Highlands and Islands. Further east, still sunshine holding on there across eastern Scotland. Cloud also encroaching much of Northern Ireland, some patchy rain across the west, slowly spreading eastwards. England and Wales, though, a fine end to Monday. Plenty of sunshine, temperatures still holding up the mid to high 20s, so great for an evening walk. And then overnight, this weather front just slowly pushes its way southeastwards, loses most of its so just becomes an area of cloud. Some patchy light rain and drizzle perhaps over the highest ground. Most places dry overnight, prolonged clear spells, but this will still mean temperatures holding up generally in the mid to low double figures. So a warm start to Tuesday, plenty of sunshine across England and Wales. The remnants of this weather front perhaps just giving a little more cloud across parts of northern England later, parts of Wales. Northern Ireland also clouding over through Tuesday, perhaps 1 or 2 splashes of rain possible. Scotland also bright and sunny. In the sunshine, temperatures rising for many of us, again approaching the high 20s, close to 30 Celsius in the southeast.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good way to start the day with the Great British Giveaway. Have a go.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year so far, and it's totally tax-free. What would you spend that on? Luxury holidays, a new car, or just put it away for a rainy day? Whatever you do with £30,000 in tax-free cash, make sure you don't miss out on a chance to make it yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
OK, well, still to come, inspired by the Olympics. That opening ceremony,
yes.
rubbish. What a lot of... Well, I mean, seriously, everybody said it was wonderful. It rained, and there was some Egypt who ran about with a skull on or something, or was hiding. Oh, it was a lot of... What?
It's just a bit lost for me. I think you'd think about it in a what's it called? In an arena, it would work quite well, I think, but the fact it was on the Seine, it just got a bit lost. And then there was some interpretive dance going on there and a bit of interpretive dance there, and then everyone else was getting wet.
What's her name? Lady Gaga. So
Lady
she comes
Gaga.
out, dressed well, looks well. You think this is going to be good. What a lot of rubbish that was.
Pre-recorded.
What?
Wasn't even live. Pre-recorded.
Seriously?
Yeah. Apparently they were worried about the rain, so they just thought we won't do it live just in case someone slips and falls. I think one of our dancers did slip and fall.
I couldn't hear anything that she sang. So they were dancing and whatever, and the audio was just awful.
Yeah, it was.
And then, I don't know, I thought, what was that all about? No idea. Anyway, Simon Calder, he's out there. He's been having there's good things to take away from it so far. Yeah. And we'll be talking about this after this break.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Go and get another glass of that bubbly, you've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Breakfast. The time is 6:26. Now, you may think that Paris is now a no-go zone, full of expensive hotels and travel chaos at the moment. But according to the travel correspondent for The Independent, Simon Calder, that is not the case at all.
Oh, and I will go back to London 2012. Simon, good morning to you. And I remember London 2012, and there was all sorts of provision, and we thought we couldn't move around the city of London and whatever. And the place was empty. London was empty. So I'm beginning to think, could the same be true of Paris?
Yes, it could, Eamonn. In fact, they're officially now calling it le flop, the flop. That is what they're saying in Paris because, well, frankly, there simply aren't any tourists. The latest figures we've seen are that, for instance, among Airbnbs, there's 1 in 7 which has been booked all the way through, but 22% have no visitors at all. I've been there over the weekend. It was a fantastic time to be in Paris because, well, very largely it was empty. Yes, there were lots of Olympics officials and media and quite a lot of fans, lots of French people coming in from the provinces for it. But actually, as a tourist destination, being able to breeze around, walk into pretty much any museum you wanted to and not encountering huge queues, it was great. But the hotel I stayed in, which was about half the price of what you normally expect to pay in the summer, they just said Paris is dead. We thought we were going to get extremely rich on this. In fact, we're losing lots of money and it's a disaster. And that's borne out with lots and lots of people, whether they're driving taxis or running bars and restaurants. So great time to be a tourist, terrible time to be working in the tourism industry there.
Yes, and do you think, Simon, some people are just avoiding Paris because of the travel chaos over the weekend? We saw that Eurostar, there were cancellations throughout the weekend, wasn't there?
It was absolutely horrible. Let me take you back, of course, to the early hours of Friday morning, as you were reporting. We saw a coordinated arson attacks on 3 of the main high-speed lines in France, including the one which goes from London St Pancras International, which you can see there, through to Paris Gare du Nord. As a result of that, the trains were taking much longer. They were going around the old slower tracks, and therefore that you would find that to get to Paris, which is we're looking at here, that would take you about about 2 hours longer than normal. They couldn't get the number of trains through. Yesterday, for instance, they cancelled another 6. And I calculate that 11,000 people have now had their travel plans torn up as a result of the attack on the rail lines. Things should get back to normal today, but for a lot of people, they had tickets for events over the weekend, or even the opening ceremony, which Eamonn enjoyed so much. It's they missed that, yes. I was lucky enough. I flew over and flew back, and that was all very smooth and very easy to manage.
Well, that's the thing, Simon. What would your advice be to people who are saying we were going to go, we didn't go, but now we're listening to what Simon's saying this morning? What would you say the best plan of action would be if you wanted to go?
Lots of cheap flights around. Tomorrow, for instance, you can fly from Belfast to Beauvais in northern France, which Ryanair calls Paris at least, and get a bus from there into the city. Last time I checked, the flight was £19 one way. You pay almost as much as that for the bus. You can find plenty of good hotels in the sort of £60 to £70 range. They are now desperate and just cutting prices. And you'll be able to get around very, very easily. The whole city kind of shut down in advance of the opening ceremony. Once that was out of the way on Saturday morning, it's been great. And of course, you can get tickets for loads of events. There's a very good app, Paris 2024 tickets. You can find football matches, weightlifting, judo, archery, all these events you didn't know that you were interested in, but tickets widely available. And of course, things like the marathon, you just find yourself somewhere along the route. So it's a great time to be in Paris.
Well, good, good. And are you going there now? Where are you off to? What are you at London City Airport?
Yes, I'm here. I'm flying in a moment to Dublin, and then I've got a quick change before I go to Halifax in Canada, in lovely Nova Scotia. So it's a cheap way there, because obviously if you go via Dublin, you dodge air passenger duty.
Fantastic. Yeah, you do. Yeah, there you go. Hot tip from Simon Calder. He's full of them. Thank you, Simon. Safe travels.
Safe travel. Have a lovely time. Speak to you again soon. Thank you, my friend. God bless. Bye-bye.
So I think we should head to Paris. What do you think? We can go see the...
Why? Come here. Why would you want to
go see the hockey or something?
Look, the only sports that should be in the Olympics are track and field. Right, that's what it should be about.
Yes.
Nothing, anything else. Who cares about archery and hockey and
not even football? You love football.
I don't love Olympic football. Why could I care less about Olympic football? There's only I love football. I love Manchester United.
I know you do.
You know, one religion, MUFC. That's all I care about, really. Anyway, Kinsey Schofield, we're sticking with the Olympics because she watched that pile of poo that was the opening ceremony. Come on, you're not going to tell me what a lot of pretentious rubbish.
Look, I have never done acid in my life, but I imagine if I did do acid, it would be what I witnessed at the Olympics opening ceremony. It was wild. It made no sense to me. Like Ellie said, it was all over the place. Could you guys not just focus? Could you focus a little bit? But it's not just me. Many Christians are speaking out against the Olympics opening ceremony. They're upset by a scene that they felt depicted Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper, and the Catholic Church in France said it included mockery of Christianity, that opening ceremony. One American pastor wrote on a viral Instagram post, "The opening act of the 2024 Olympics began by mocking Jesus and the Last Supper. I refuse to be entertained by anyone that mocks my Savior, but I also know that my Savior died on a cross for everyone in that picture. Pray for them." Now, the Daily Mail is saying that there was such a strong outcry that it seems the Olympics has deleted the footage throughout social media. I mean, unfortunately for them, the internet is a Sharpie, a permanent marker, and thousands of individuals captured the footage themselves. So now their accounts are being flagged. Those social media posts are being flagged, that the content is owned by someone else for copyright infringement, and those posts are being removed.
Well, it sounds like they actually have regrets, don't they? One of the organisers saying clearly there was no intention to show any disrespect to any religious group. But Kinsey, it's a Catholic country, isn't it, France? It's so surprising that at no point during the rehearsals did anyone say, actually, this could be very disrespectful to anyone who's Christian.
And in the same statement, Ellie, she almost defends them. She says, on the contrary, I think Thomas Jolly did try to intend to celebrate community tolerance. That's what they're saying a lot, community tolerance. We believe this ambition was achieved. If people have taken any offense, we, of course, are really sorry. And, you know, again, to your point about it kind of being spaced out too much, some Parisians and tourists said they couldn't even see the performances clearly at the opening ceremony, and they left early. I mean, between the horrible weather, the way that it was mapped out, and just kind of the chaos of the event, and you're disappointed if you miss Lady Gaga, who pre-recorded her performance, a lot of people were packing up and leaving.
Well, I mean, I didn't know what she was singing about. She looked very well, and it was all like pink, fluffy balls, and everything was all very nice. That was all good. And I tell you what, I would have stayed with it to wait for Celine Dion. But I didn't. I thought, what?
Well, you should have done. She was worth the wait.
Was she?
Oh, she blew
3 hours of that?
Yeah, well, I know. But she was worth it, wasn't she, Kinsey? She absolutely blew my socks off.
Did she?
She was wonderful.
OK, tell us more, Kinsey.
This was Celine Dion's first public appearance since announcing she is dealing with stiff person syndrome. This resulted in high emotions people on the street were sobbing. Here in the States, we had Kelly Clarkson. This was NBC's coverage. She's a pop star and TV host. She was completely emotional on the broadcast, calling Celine a vocal athlete. This was the second time that Dion has performed during the opening ceremony at the Olympics. It was in 1996 that we saw her in Atlanta, Atlanta, Georgia. But this is a triumphant time for Celine Dion. Her brand new documentary, I Am Celine Dion, became Amazon Prime's all-time most popular documentary last week. Celine calls this documentary a love letter to her fans, and it is so great. It's really a painful and vulnerable look at the way she's learned to navigate life with stiff person syndrome. And watching that documentary, it was so surprising to see how effortless and incredible she was at the Olympics. I was so proud of her.
Well, good luck to her, and I'm glad it went well for her, and I hope lots of people enjoyed that. Stars who turn up. I see Mick Jagger was there, Tom Cruise making headlines by being there, and Tom Cruise, he certainly went to see the
Simone Biles.
What does she do?
Gymnastics.
Gymnastics.
Yeah, that's what he was
I
going to
couldn't
watch.
stand watching that.
Oh, she's very good.
I know she's very good. I can see she's superb. She's superb at what she does. But if that's what you want to look at, well and good. But isn't it amazing, Kinsey, that he travelled the whole way to Paris, and that was the event? Was it the event he wanted, or was it support for her?
I mean, Ariana Grande was there too. I do think Americans are especially supportive of our gymnastics team. It's so they are incredible young women, and there is a lot more enthusiasm for our gymnastics team than really any other sport. I think I couldn't explain to you why we love them so much. They're just our girls, and they're incredibly talented. They work hard, and we're absolutely crazy about them.
Yeah, do you know Chris Akabusi? Do you know who Chris Akabusi is?
I recognize the name, but I don't immediately have the face.
Yeah, but he laughs a lot, and he does the newspapers and things in here. He's very good, and he picked up I think a bronze at the Olympics.
Silver in LA.
Was it silver in LA? That was
40 years ago.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, I love him. Yes, he's a great guy. Absolutely.
He's great.
Well, he's coming on later to talk to us about what the athletes go through and the expectation and all that sort of thing. So we're looking forward to hearing that as well. It's funny the things you do get interested in. I've been interested in the preparations for rowing with the Ireland team and the Great Britain team. And I don't know why, but I suppose you do get caught up in some things.
What is the prep for rowing? Lots of eating, I imagine. It's lots of cardio, isn't it? That's the kind of thing I'd be interested in.
Very good chest and a broad back.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it does.
I think that we can all take something away from the discipline that these athletes have. I'm always fascinated by. I mean, we can use it in our day-to-day work as well. I'd love to be as disciplined as these people are.
Oh, wouldn't we all?
What would your sport be? What would you, when you were at school or whatever, what did they push you at?
I was a junior Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, so I don't know if that would be cheerleading or gymnastics, but probably something in that arena.
Kinsey, that is so fun. You must have been so good.
Oh, my gosh. I had the bright red lipstick on. Go team.
Brilliant. Good.
I'd pay to see
have
that.
a good Olympics, Kinsey. We'll speak again soon. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Kinsey. Good to see you. Now, do stay with us. Still to come, we're going to be going through the papers with Christopher Biggins and Dawn Lisa.
Yes, forgot about that.
Yeah, we've got all the fun to come.
That's next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
And this week, it's disabled adventurer Nick Wilson and rocket engineering director Elliot Dyson-Barber from the Institution of Engineering and Technology.
Yes, earlier this month, Nick Wilson summited Mount Snowdon unaided. The first time this has been attempted with the help of an engineered electric mobility chair called the Rock Climber.
Tell us what you did, when you did it, and why it's so amazing, because it's the first time this has been done, isn't it?
You feel lazy, you should try being me, going up a mountain and just pressing the accelerator. These poor buggers had to go and come up behind me. It still hasn't sunk in properly, and to be the first disabled person to do it during Disability Pride Month is... I couldn't have asked for anything else. But it's all possible because of Rock Engineering. They've been working on this for the past 2 years to create this machine. I wouldn't be here because I was struggling a lot with loneliness and isolation. I was very suicidal, and they literally saved my life with this project.
The whole thing came around by accident, meeting Nick, and he kind of highlighted some issues to us in terms of his accessibility, and he you know, he lives in Toaster near where we're based, and he came down the high street and sort of said, I can't even get into the shops in the high street.
So, Nick, you just mentioned that the kind of place you were in before doing this, you were lonely, suicidal. Yeah. What was it like when you finally managed to scale Snowdon? Because I've done it on foot, and just being for anyone, being in nature and fresh air.
The one word that I think I've used throughout this is freeing. It is when you're so reliant on drop curves. It's freeing that you're not reliant on a hard-standing path or drop curves, wherever. You can, in rock climb, you can literally go anywhere you want. Yeah. And freeing is the big word, and it's amazing.
The People's Channel.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M62 in Greater Manchester, there are delays each way towards junction 19 near Rochdale after overnight roadworks. Trains have been stopped between Manchester Piccadilly and Stalybridge because of an incident. In Suffolk, there's a report of an accident westbound between Earl Soham and Ashfield. In London, the A409 is closed along Brooks Hill off the A410 Uxbridge Road at Harrow Weald because of a burst water main. There's disruption to train services through Clapham Junction in London because of a signalling problem. Gatwick Express services are suspended and Southern services are suspended between Victoria and Three Bridges, with a reduced service on some other southern routes. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking a quarter of an hour westbound, approaching the M25 because of roadworks. Train services are suspended between Salisbury and Romsey because of a signalling problem. And in Devon, the A386 is closed north of Tavistock after an accident.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Now, we were talking about the Olympics on Friday and the coverage and how awful it was.
Oh, yes.
Biggins disagrees. Biggins got Dawn and Lisa when they're going to review the papers for us today. But Biggins, you thought, and in fairness, I mean, I would have a low tolerance level for such things, because I actually think if you just stop doing all this opening and closing and just concentrate on the events, that's fine. But there's so much effort put into opening and closing events of these things.
I know.
But you're so theatrical. I mean, that's...
I thought when we had the last Olympics in Great Britain, I thought we did a fantastic job.
Yes, that was 2012.
We went to the closing, actually, ceremony, which was fantastic.
Was it amazing?
Really amazing. And it's exciting, but... there's only 40,000 or however many people you can get into that stadium. The thing I liked about Paris was the whole of Paris joined in. There were people lining the Seine. There were people at different positions in Paris, seeing everything. And millions of Parisians must have been there seeing, and visitors must have been there seeing. And there was something for everybody. I mean, Celine Dion was. I mean, I couldn't agree more with what you said earlier. I mean, she was a revelation, as was Lady Gaga. I mean,
that was awful.
Oh,
I mean, she looked brilliant. Don't get me wrong. The Lady Gaga thing, I thought. The presentation, I thought, oh, this will be good. Now, what's she singing? No idea what she's saying.
Yeah, but that didn't matter.
It didn't matter.
No, I liked watching that piece of hair come out of her head. I thought it was an aerial.
Dawn, what did you think?
I agree with you. I thought the opening ceremony was... I was transfixed. I couldn't take my eyes off it. It was so bad. It was good. I still have nightmares about the naked Smurf thing.
What was that?
And the news story today on it, though, is the fact that the organisers have actually said sorry. They've apologised, issued an official apology for the drag queen Last Supper. You can never unsee that image, can you? That included the naked Smurf. But they've apologised for that, and they got so much backlash from it. They've withdrawn it from the YouTube channel as well. And they said it was that there's clearly never an intention to show any disrespect to any religious group. Well, I mean, clearly there was, and lots of European politicians have said, what on earth were you thinking? Yeah. What drugs were you on when you put this one together? And the thing is with this, it's that Christianity is the one religion it's OK to poke fun at, and we've done it from time immemorial, haven't we? But, you know, considering this was Paris, where we had the hideous Charlie Hebdo attack, where people people lost their lives over poking fun at religion. It was just a bit insensitive on so many levels, but they have issued an official apology now.
I love the rain, you see. I thought the rain actually added to it. I mean,
well, it did for Celine Dion, don't you think? Added to the drama and the moment. But I think for the rest of it, it just looked like a bit of a washout.
No, but I thought that it was, you know, and it was the fact that they kept going, you know. I mean, there were points where that man was playing a piano. And
I saw him. There was like a lake.
Oh, my. I mean, it was extraordinary. And I said to Neil, what is it? Is that rain? Because it looked as though it was something else. It was absolutely extraordinary.
And you'll know, being a telly performer as well, that you can't normally see rain on television.
No.
It has to be really, really heavy.
Really
and
heavy.
we would have to work through things as if it's not there. There's no point complaining about the rain because people at home can't see it.
No.
And that's what they did. They did carry on through it has to be said.
And it was interesting that Keir Starmer, who had a terrible seat, goodness knows why he was given a seat then.
No one knows who he is.
No.
All the important people are in the first
Cruise
couple of
has got
rows.
all the good seats, whatever. Mick Jagger, he's got the good seats.
Do you see, though, because Sir Keir Starmer was the only one dressed for the weather. He came with his raincoat packed.
Yeah.
Everyone else had to have a rain poncho, one of those plastic ones.
Yeah,
but
because
he was dressed for the
He
occasion.
realised that as soon as you put one of those on, you look like a giant condom. I mean, he
It's true.
looked quite decent. I know,
It's
obviously,
true.
he learned his lesson from Rishi Sunak standing outside number 10 Downing.
Yeah. It was
yes.
funny, though. It's like spot the Brit in the crowd.
Yeah,
It was the man who was dressed for the weather.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, where do we begin? Let's get into all the boring stuff now.
Oh, the politics, Eamonn.
Yeah.
We do Tory party leadership contest.
Now, the thing about the Tory party leader contest, and you both have opinions on this, I defy any member of the general public really to know who the hell any of them are. Who's Robert Jenrick? You know, who's James Cleverly? Who is Kemi Badenoch? And what's the difference between Kemi Badenoch and Suella Braverman? But nobody knows.
It's like they're all contestants on Celebrity Get Me Out of Here. We don't know who they are.
Yeah.
They're perfect for this.
Well, we've got long enough to find out who they are. It's going to be about 3 months or so.
This is the problem, isn't it? I mean, we did a Vox Pop over the weekend asking people in Lichfield, you know, who they thought should be the leader. And, I mean, it is very Westminster bubble because we are obsessed because it's our job to be covering the stories. But they were going, who are these people? They were literally saying that. Who are these people? I mean, the story today is that Suella Braverman has quit the race, or has the race quit her? I think that's the more likely option. Kemi Badenoch has put her name forward. And Suella Braverman's quit with a parting shot saying, you know, they didn't... I'm quitting because they wouldn't back me because I'm going to tell them the truth about where the Tory party went wrong. Well, I think the Tory party probably knows where it went wrong.
Do you think she may resurrect herself with Reform
Yes,
Party?
I do, Eamonn. I mean, because part of the interview she's given today is she warns that Nigel Farage's Reform Party posed a threat which should not be neutralised by comparing them to the Nazis, as the Tory rival in Clacton actually did, didn't he? So she's saying, look, you know, you've got to stop condemning this party. You've got to take them seriously because they are one of the reasons the Tory party lost so many votes. So it does sound like she may be angling for a role with Reform.
Well, she says she got those 10 votes that you're needed in order to formally enter the contest. So she could have done, but chose not to.
But
what she's saying.
Yeah, but she's going to get through this stage. But when it goes forwards for the next selection process, there's no way she's going to get the amount of nominations.
I think Nigel Farage will lead the Conservative Party.
You do. You think he'll go from Reform?
And I think he'll win it in the next election.
But bearing in mind he's not there for this leadership.
No, he's not. But
is there anybody that stands out for you as a leader, as a character?
No.
So that's why you think Nigel Farage needs to come over. But would he want to lose all that momentum that he's building with Reform? He wants to make them the main opposition party.
Yeah, but
why
I
would he
think
go to the Tories now?
Well, I think he knows where his, you know, he can succeed in a way, I think, you know, because I think he's a very extremely clever man, as we all know if we've met him. And there's something about him which is very charismatic.
If you look at the history of the parties, it's the more centrist options that tend to get in and govern. So Barbara was implying that the Tories weren't right enough. But I think it's going to be probably a centrist leader that does get elected. So, I mean, I'm a big admirer of Kemi Badenoch. I think she's very feisty.
I like Kemi too.
But I think she's maybe a bit too feisty to be the unifying force the Conservative Party needs.
Well, she's been saying that unity isn't enough, which I'm not sure what that means. What else do you need? Yeah.
It's like a word.
I mean, unity would be a good start, I think.
Yeah, it would be off a
After all
flying
these years,
start,
yeah.
wouldn't it? It really would be.
Well, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, is going to tell us today there is a massive hole in finances. Not only do we not have any money, but we have even less than we ever thought we had in the
Which comes as a surprise. This, honestly, Eamonn, this comes as a surprise to absolutely nobody.
Exactly.
Because we had several official reports saying neither the Conservatives nor the Labour Party, your financial sums add up. There is a black hole that you both need to fill. And now we've got Rachel Reeves, who's the Chancellor, going, well, no one told me there was a black hole. And it's like everybody knew. Everybody knew you had to find money. But what she is also doing, it's likely that today she's going to approve the above-inflation pay rises for the millions of public sector workers, teachers and NHS staff, which will cost another £3.5 billion. So on one hand, she's saying, well, you know that tax raise thing we said we weren't going to do, we're going to have to do it. And they are paying the public. I mean, look, no one's saying that the nurses and teachers don't deserve more money. Of course they do. But, I mean, just remember how much the unions donate to the Labour Party. And it's all politics, isn't it? I mean, I know that's what they do, but this mysterious black hole label have suddenly just noticed.
Well, they've got Labour are clever, though, because they've got a money tree, haven't they, in the back garden? You know, that'll be wonderful.
Yeah, it's called the taxpayer.
Exactly.
But we're not taxing the working people.
Yeah. Well, what they will tax is things like capital gains tax, inheritance tax, various things, and they'll say, well, we'll get away with this because it affects relatively few people and they're just posh people anyway, and therefore nobody really cares.
I do think they've been very quiet on what they're going to do with pensioners.
Yes, that's
Well,
true.
I think there'll be a revolution if they do that to the pensioners. I mean, you don't think that the pensioners are just going to sit there in their Zimmer frames and not do anything. They're going to they'll really tell the government where to get off.
The trouble is, Biggins, they've got such a huge majority. Well, you know, we can all shout and say this is wrong.
Majority.
But there's no one going to fight in Parliament.
But the thing that gets me is, if we looked at the books, we could actually, I know I could sit there and say, well, what are we paying for that for? What are we doing that for?
Exactly.
Let's get rid of that. And I'm not talking about the NHS and social care and defence and whatever. I'm not talking about the obvious things. There must be so much rubbish.
Yeah, so much waste.
Sitting on the books that you think, are you serious? We pay how much for this a year?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, apparently we're spending millions on consultancy fees. Millions to consultants to advise government.
To advise who
why?
on what?
Aren't you elected to make decisions?
Yeah,
why
kind of. Some of them I don't want to make decisions so early, to be honest with you.
Now, Dawn, you're in your shorts today.
Yes.
You're looking wonderful. She's dressing for the weather that we've got.
Thank God for this desk, that's all I can say.
Some would say
you've got great legs.
you look amazing. Some people say it's too hot to work today, though.
The long, hot summer of 2024 starts today, and it's going to last 2 days.
Woo!
Too hot to work. I mean, come on. I mean, it's going to be...
Any excuse.
It's funny, if you look at the weather map, it's like, you know, it's going to be like possibly the late 20s in a bit of the country for 2 days. And the weather map has suddenly gone blood red, and it's like, don't go out, you'll die. And it's, come on, it's a bit of warm weather.
Gets me, if you're ever on holiday and you see people who are hotel managers or whatever, and they wear shirts and ties and suits and whatever, they're formally dressed, and they somehow do it, they do it. So if they can do it, I think we can get through the next couple of
we're
days.
a nation of snowflakes, Eamonn, when it comes to the weather, aren't we? It's ridiculous.
We can't cope either way, can we?
No, it's too hot, it's too cold. But we do talk about the weather at least 3 times a day.
Oh, yeah.
I'm off to Barcelona today.
Are you?
I'm going to go with a huge gun of water and put it over those Barcelona people. Can you believe that they
We don't want to see you.
Anti-tourist.
We don't want you. Haven't got time to talk to you, but we do want you. Come back in 40 minutes' time. It's Greg Dewhurst with that hot weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Plenty of sunshine across much of the UK, turning increasingly hot over the next couple of days, particularly across England and Wales. And you can see a cloudier start across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland first thing this morning. A weak weather front is producing some rain across the far northwest, largely the Western Isles, but also fringing western coasts into the afternoon. But plenty of sunshine for the vast majority of the UK, perhaps an isolated shower across northern England, southern Scotland, but temperatures rising in that sunshine, 25 to 29 Celsius towards the southeast, low 20s further north and west. Through this evening time, this weather front does just push a little further eastwards, bringing some patchy light rain largely to the Highlands and Islands. Further east, still sunshine holding on there across eastern Scotland. Cloud also encroaching much of Northern Ireland, some patchy rain across the west, slowly spreading eastwards. England and Wales, though, a fine end to Monday. Plenty of sunshine, temperatures still holding up the mid to high 20s, so great for an evening walk. And then overnight, this weather front just slowly pushes its way southeastwards, loses most of its so just becomes an area of cloud. Some patchy light rain and drizzle perhaps over the highest ground. Most places dry overnight, prolonged clear spells, but this will still mean temperatures holding up generally in the mid to low double figures. So a warm start to Tuesday, plenty of sunshine across England and Wales. The remnants of this weather front perhaps just giving a little more cloud across parts of northern England later, parts of Wales. Northern Ireland also clouding over through Tuesday, perhaps 1-2 splashes of rain possible. Scotland also bright and sunny. In the sunshine, temperatures rising for many of us, again approaching the high 20s, close to 30 Celsius in the southeast.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M62 in Greater Manchester, there are long delays each way towards junction 19 near Rochdale because of roadworks. Trains have been stopped between Manchester Piccadilly and Stalybridge because of an incident. No service in Norfolk between Acle and Ningwood because of an obstruction on the line. In Suffolk, the A1120 is partly blocked westbound by an accident between Earl Soham and Ashfield. In London, the A409 is closed along Brooks Hill by Harrow College because of a burst water main. There's disruption to trains into and out of Victoria Station in London because of a signalling problem. Gatwick Express has no service. There's a reduced Southern Rail service on some routes. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking nearly half an hour westbound, approaching the M25 because of roadworks. In Devon, the A386 is closed north of Tavistock after an accident yesterday evening. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year so far, and it's totally tax-free. What would you spend that on? Luxury holidays, a new car, or just put it away for a rainy day? Whatever you do with £30,000 in tax-free cash, make sure you don't miss out on a chance to make it yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
you made my argument for me. My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, Just kidding. Britain's news channel.
A very good morning to you. The government planned to sell off publicly owned buildings to raise money for the spending black hole.
The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, will announce the move today, with a number of government buildings and land being considered for sale.
The Chancellor says the plans will cut costs and balance the books, accusing the Conservatives of economic mismanagement.
The Tory party leadership battles continue. Kemi Badenoch launched her bid overnight.
The positive effect of the Olympic travel chaos. The disruption means it's now easy to get games tickets, and hotel prices are down for those visiting Paris.
A postcode lottery for IVF. A new report has revealed access to NHS funding is based simply on where you live.
Time to go vegan. Research suggests cutting animal products out may reduce a person's biological age. We'll be debating that later.
High pressure dominating the weather pattern for the next couple of days. Temperatures rising. Find out how high coming up soon in the forecast.
Just after 7 o'clock, a very good morning to you on this Monday morning. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. Lots of thoughts coming through on the IVF postcode lottery report from Sophie Reaper this morning. Luke says, why is the NHS still paying for people to get pregnant? It is not a God-given right to have children. Mum and Dad were unable to have children, so they adopted me and my brother, and they never claimed a single penny off the state to bring either of us up either.
So what do you think about that? Do you think it is your responsibility to be fertile, have a child? Do you need help in doing that? Is it the state's responsibility or not? Let us know your views, but I have to say, Ellie, that this Luke's opinion's the same as Brenda's, Sasha's, Paul's, so it goes on. People just don't think this is the job of the NHS, but then they're not in that situation where they are childless. So a very complicated situation. But should this be the responsibility of the NHS to give you children? The Chancellor will today prepare to deliver her first major speech in the role, and she will confirm a £20 billion black hole in public spending.
Well, the new government looks set to plug the gap by cutting down on government spending and selling off unused buildings.
I'm laughing now. What are all these unused buildings?
I don't know.
Oh, that building's empty. That's owned by the state. Right?
£20 billion. Going to need to be a lot of buildings.
I think there need to be a lot of buildings indeed. I think you'll find there are a few buildings that will be used and then they won't be used after that. So the Conservatives, meanwhile, they're still looking for a new leader. And the race is heating up. The deadline for applications, if you want to enter, will close this afternoon.
Yes, but Suella Braverman has confirmed she's not going to run, as she calls her party traumatised. Kemi Badenoch, though, has launched her bid overnight.
Joining us now, former advisor to Boris Johnson, Oscar Redrop, with his take on all of this. First thing, we look at these, the runners and riders for this Conservative leadership thing, which will go on until November?
First week of November, yeah.
I mean, people don't know the difference between Kemi Badenoch and Suella Braverman, and this is the problem is they've no natural leader that stands out at the moment. Will that change?
Well, look, I mean, first of all, this is the first hurdle in the eyes of the public, and the Conservative Party should be really conscious of that, I think, in terms of competency and kind of grown-upness. Which I think the public felt at times was very much missing over the last few years. So they have to get this right. There's probably a fine balance between it taking too long and it getting nasty and drawn out, and the bloodletting is too visceral and too difficult for the party. They should do it in a grown-up, sensible way. In terms of name recognition,
I think for most people who aren't caught up in the game of politics and actually have really important things that are more pressing in their lives, I think that's probably a fair point, Eamonn. I don't think there is a huge amount of name recognition there. It's not always a bad thing. And that's why if this contest is done sensibly and calmly and the Conservative Party do it with dignity and respect, that actually there is room to grow, to reveal yourself to the people and the public. Or sometimes not having recognition is an advantage. So this is just real stress testing. It's only at the point, really, of troubleshooting. I'd be sceptical of candidates who are coming out making all kinds of crazy promises. I want to see, and I think a lot of people want to see, that humility to understand what has happened.
The only thing is, Oscar, I just wonder, will this be a rerun of Rishi Sunak again? I mean, you said sometimes not having the visibility can be an advantage, but that's how he came in like that. No one had a clue who he was, and look what happened.
Well, it's only an opportunity if you take it. I mean, I'm only speaking as myself here. I'm not pretending to speak on behalf of anyone else, but what I think the Conservative Party truly needs is imagination, creativity, like inspiring people, understanding like this is generally speaking a conservative country, small c, and tapping into that with creativity and imagination and awe and charisma. And
why my friend then would Suella Braverman be in a situation where she deems that she's not wanted and that she's too outspoken?
Well, I think we all know that feeling of, you know, we might not want to admit it to ourselves, if I'm not going to win this, if I'm not going to, you know, get that job promotion, if I'm not going to be, you know, prom king or queen, then I might just not go. You know, and I think she's the kind of person who's like, I'm in it to win it. I don't want I'm not using it to position as like, myself to get a decent shadow job. I'm in it to win it. And if she felt like that momentum wasn't there for her, then I think she's made the call on her terms.
Could you see her shifting party? Could you see her joining Reform?
I think that's where the mood music is probably settling at the moment. I think she'd be... I think Reform would definitely have someone like Suella with her government experience. It's something they're lacking. And if they do want to be taken seriously as a real party with real momentum, not just protests that really move the dial, then they'll want someone with you know, high-level government experience, probably.
Well, she's not happy with the Tories at the moment, is she? She's describing them as a traumatised party, and she's saying she's got her own diagnosis of what exactly went wrong, but they just don't want to hear it.
I think there's an element of truth. I think the party is quite traumatised probably over the last few years, but it's how they convert that, it's how they translate that internally. You know, are they positive about it? Is there humility, or do they use that trauma to lash out at each other and kind of by association the public, this is a really harsh lesson for the Conservative Party right now. In this moment in time, the general public don't want to hear from you. And that's fine. The British people are forgiving, you know, we'll second, third chance kind of people. But right now, they don't want to hear from you.
Is that
and
maybe...
understand that, have the humility to understand that.
Is that maybe why we're not seeing the big names then coming forward for this leadership contest? Because it's a poison chalice. It's a really difficult job.
It's a really difficult job, which is why it's a really, really difficult job. But it can be done. You know, I think people said that similarly about Starmer. You know, the Labour Party looked completely out on its feet after 2019. But it can be done, and it's a day-by-day task. But in fairness to Keir Starmer, the first thing he did was, we need to sort ourselves out. And that's where the Conservative Party at the moment.
Keir Starmer's performed very well in 3 weeks, you know, basically for maybe the dullest man I've ever seen on the political stage. So, I mean, if you'd asked me, I would have thought right from the start, there's no way this man's going to be elected as leader of the party, and there's no way he's going to hold on to this job, and there's no way he's going to capture the imagination of the public. And for all sorts of reasons, maybe I'm right on that, you know, and it'll be shown out at the next election or whatever. But when he got the boots to fill, he stepped into them quite responsibly, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he troubleshooted. You can't be really wary of people, I think, who kind of come in, you know, arms flailing around. You know, we need to do this, that, you know, this isn't good enough. You know, why didn't you need to solve the problems first internally of how the last few years have gone. And Starmer did an excellent job at that. And only then, when you know and you troubleshoot and you know what the problems are, can you actually genuinely, constructively get on and solve them. But charisma takes on lots of forms, and his is slightly. It's a slow burn, but it is starting to come out. You know, the picture of... I know it sounds silly, but these things do cut through. But you know that picture
The
of
rain
him?
jacket.
Yeah, and there was an antennae he showed there. Like, nothing's... You know, that there was a deliberate... That was a decision. And I saw a lot of people saying, oh, that made me feel quite... in a silly way. It made me feel quite proud to be British in that moment. And politics is silly sometimes. And so he is slowly... He's turning up the charisma dial in a slow way.
But now we're getting to the tough decisions. And
Yes.
we talk about this £20 billion black hole, and we say, well, what we do, we'll flog off unused government buildings. Well, come on, how many of those are there? I'd be very surprised. There's a lot of them. But this is going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of buildings put up for sale, if that is the case. And then that's where people begin to get maybe... They get their toes stood on as a result of this, and they think, well, why are you selling this building for? Why are you doing that for? I don't believe there are £20 billion worth of buildings out there to sell unless they're full of people already.
No, there aren't, and it's almost kind of, you know, responsible economic virtue signalling in a way. You know, that's just to show we're thinking, we're cost cutting, we're looking at.
But we're also going to tax you. But we're not going to mention that bit.
Exactly, and people often refer to politics as smoke and mirrors. You know, like, and this is I think, a decent example of that. You know, yeah, we're looking at high-paid consultants. We're going to cut costs on a few buildings here and there and make a bit, but actually, the real pitch rolling is tax increases, and people will feel differently about that depending on their sensibilities.
But Rachel Reeves is going to hang on, you think, till the budget to announce those tax increases. She's not doing it now. She's not calling an emergency budget. She's just announcing a review, an audit.
Yeah, it's everything.
Are we just delaying the inevitable here?
I think potentially. I think that's quite a frustrating style of government where everything's an internal review and an audit and a quango and a task force, and the Labour Party has, not even just in terms of number 11, but just generally in departments, have been very heavy on task forces and quangos, and I think a lot of people, you know, just want to see things happen. They want to see things get done. They've had a difficult few years. They've pointed the finger at the Conservatives, and I think people will go, can you get a...
Come up with some action now.
Yeah, swore then. Sorry, can't do that. It's too early for that.
No, can't be doing that.
But get a move on.
7 in the morning.
Good hearing from you, Oscar. Thank you very much indeed. A lot of interesting factors to take into account there. And that's the situation with the politics this morning. Thank you.
It certainly is.
Thank you.
Well, let's talk about the Conservative leadership race, shall we now? We are joined by Devon and Cornwall Police and Crime Commissioner Alison Hernandez. Good to see you this morning, Alison. And who's the front runner for you?
Well, it has to be Priti Patel for me. I mean, I'm going to say that as a police and crime commissioner because I've seen the policies she's delivered as the Home Secretary on the ground where I live, making a difference. So, you know, delivery's been our challenge for the last few years as a party, and I think that's something Priti is definitely something she can achieve.
Is she popular with the public, though, do you think? Does she have that cut-through, that charisma?
Well, she's certainly popular with the membership. I took her around if you just think about Devon and Cornwall, we're right on the peninsula. We don't get that many ministerial visits. We don't get that many political visits unless people have got a holiday home down there. And the reality is you take Priti anywhere, people want to talk to her. They recognise her. She stands for something I think people believe in, which is that unity element. She is someone who is a no-nonsense, but absolute compassionate Conservative. And I think for me, we are supposed to be the party of law and order, and someone who's got a real understanding of law and order should be someone who takes us to the next stage.
Can I ask you about another Home Secretary, Suella Braverman? Are you surprised that she hasn't put herself forward?
I'm surprised, but I'm actually delighted because, look, we've got some strong women in our party at the moment, and it's really difficult when they're all competing with each other. I think we've got some outstanding women in the Conservative Party, so I'm looking forward to one of them being our next leader. I mean, Kemi Badenoch She is fantastic, but Pretty has got the evidence of delivery on the ground in a policy area that is the backbone of the Conservative Party. And I think she'll be able to take us really far. And certainly, I know the membership's behind her because she's a grassroots Tory. She goes out campaigning, knocking doors, doing the hard slog, which all of our members do on a voluntary basis because they're so committed to the cause. And that really wins her votes.
Alison, you know what I think? I think that, OK, you can be strong within the party setup and whatever, as Liz Truss was, and, you know, but it doesn't really matter. You've got to, Mr. and Mrs. Miggins and Mr. and Mrs. Joe Bloggs, you've got to be relevant to them. They've got to know who you are and they've got to know what type of person you are and if they would like you or not. And the thing about a lot of these characters standing for the Conservative leadership is that no matter what the headlines is that they create, they are very likeable. Priti Patel's one of the most lovely, gracious people to be around. But I bet you if we went out and said that or tried to share that with people, you wouldn't get that response, probably.
Well, the reality is with Priti is because she does things that matter to ordinary people, like taking drug dealers off the street that we're all sick of seeing all up and down the country. In fact, she closed around 2,400 county lines while she was Home Secretary and developed something called Operation Medusa, which she funded from the government. We had Merseyside police coming down to Devon and Cornwall and arresting their drug dealers in our patch. That's what people want to see. She can come across as firm, but I would say the one thing for me is she's dealing with the issues that matter to people on the streets at the moment. The assaults against emergency workers, the legislation that was brought in, extending the sentence from 12 months to 2 years. You know, we had somebody who was jailed for 15 months for assaulting 2 police officers in Devon and Cornwall last year. All this stuff actually works on the ground. Safer Streets funding that she delivered, $5.5 million that meant for Devon and Cornwall. And what that gave is extra CCTV, street lighting. And we actually were able to identify a murderer very quickly with an extra camera that had been put in place. So, you know, Priti deals with the issues that matter to people on the streets, whether that's Mrs. Miggins or Joe Bloggs. The reality is they want to see action and they want to see delivery. And that's one thing that Priti can definitely do.
You just mentioned their assault on emergency workers. I wanted your response to the latest Manchester airport video that was released yesterday. It was the moments before that man on the floor was kicked in the head by a police officer. It does suggest, it does look as though it was a violent attack on the police service.
Well, it was violence all round, really, wasn't it? Use of force to restrain them and violence against those officers in the first instance. I think the public, and particularly in the area where I'm in Devon and Cornwall, absolutely love our police. They want to see more of them on the streets. They want them to be around them. They want to feel safe. And our community will be quite disgusted with that video. The reality is there's really important processes to go through, people having to justify their actions, their decision makings. And I've seen some awful stop and searches that you ended up leading to use of force, and it was actually justified. So we'll wait and see what happens. I know Andy Burnham, as the Mayor of Manchester, is very much awaiting that process, and he won't even get to see a lot of that detail. That will be for the Chief Constable to see in the first instance.
Alison, I know you'll be like a lot of people watching and listening, and when we saw that footage that Ellie just showed there, they'll be amazed that any individual would strike a police officer in the first place. And it's people who take that for granted. They feel that they have a right to punch or kick a male or female officer there, and a female officer's nose was broken in that situation. But that lack of respect for the police, well, what can you do about rebalancing that?
To be fair, I think we've gone too far now. The reality is a lot of people who are on recall to prison, they can be the worst because they think they've got nothing to lose and they don't want to be rearrested to get put back in prison. So I think the reality is we've got some challenges in our community. Maybe some of these people shouldn't be out in our streets in the first place. So, you know, I know we've got the prison issue now where people are getting released early. We're all a little bit anxious about that, but we recognise unless we have a grown-up debate about prisons and actually look at how we're going to properly use them as rehabilitation as well as punishment, we're actually going to get nowhere, I think, in society with staying as we are.
Well, Alison Hernandez is Devon and Police, their crime commissioner. It's very interesting talking to you today, Alison. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
So many of you are getting in touch on the Tory leadership contest. Keith Garland says Priti Patel reminds me of Theresa May. Plenty of promise, but a complete disaster as leader. And North East Boy says, good morning from me and my boy Dylan. We're up near Humber Bridge today. It's gorgeous. We hope you all have a great day. I want to see Suella and Priti join Reform. I think they'd be an amazing asset and they'd give the party more credibility.
Thanks for those views. Let's get the views now of Greg Dewhurst on the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Plenty of sunshine across much of the UK, turning increasingly hot over the next couple of days, particularly across England and Wales. And you can see a cloudier start across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland first thing this morning. A weak weather front is producing some rain across the far northwest, largely the Western Isles, but also fringing western coasts into the afternoon. But plenty of sunshine for the vast majority of the UK, perhaps an isolated shower across northern England, southern Scotland, but temperatures rising in that sunshine, 25 to 29 Celsius towards the southeast, low 20s further north and west. Through this evening time, this weather front does just push a little further eastwards, bringing some patchy light rain largely to the Highlands and Islands. Further east, still sunshine holding on there across eastern Scotland. Cloud also encroaching much of Northern Ireland, some patchy rain across the west, slowly spreading eastwards. England and Wales, though, a fine end to Monday. Plenty of sunshine, temperatures still holding up the mid to high 20s, so great for an evening walk. And then overnight, this weather front just slowly pushes its way southeastwards, loses most of its so it just becomes an area of cloud. Some patchy light rain and drizzle perhaps over the highest ground. Most places dry overnight, prolonged clear spells, but this will still mean temperatures holding up generally in the mid to low double figures. So a warm start to Tuesday, plenty of sunshine across England and Wales. The remnants of this weather front perhaps just giving a little more cloud across parts of northern England later, parts of Wales. Northern Ireland also clouding over through Tuesday, perhaps 1 or 2 splashes of rain possible. Scotland also bright and sunny. In the sunshine, temperatures rising for many of us, again approaching the high 20s, close to 30 Celsius in the southeast.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Great British Giveaway, 30,000 quid. It's our biggest prize to date, and we're sort of saying, well, from us to you, this could be yours.
Here's how you could win it.
You really could become the next big Great British Giveaway winner, with your chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Listen to what some of our previous winners have to say about winning big with us.
On the day that I got the money in the bank account, everything just seemed a lot sunnier.
But I do have something to spend it on. Just go for it. It's an absolute must. Thank you, GBNews.
Amazing feeling to win.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
So, what is being a vegan? And apparently, if you go vegan, they're now saying that this can
make you look younger.
Yes, turn back your body clock.
Yeah.
You know.
Reduce your biological age.
I'm 27 years of age. Do you think my body clock has been stopped? Obviously, I'm not vegan. We're debating that next.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Should.
Just having a little chit chat here.
Just planning things.
I know,
out today.
yes.
Now, are you vegan, vegetarian?
No.
Neither am I.
Wouldn't want to be. But you would be tempted.
Yes.
Can you believe that?
And I think for ethical reasons.
He likes the animals.
For protections of animals, and I think animals are much more intelligent than we ever give them credit for, and we'll learn to talk to animals one day. We will.
Do you think?
Yes, like Dr. Dolittle.
That would be great. I feel like I can already talk to my dog.
And then we'll suddenly think, for years we didn't understand what that animal was saying, with that dog, with that pussycat, with that rabbit, with that cow, with that pig was saying. Incredible. Anyway, veganism. We're going to talk about that and how it's going to save your life. Rhys Mander is a gut health nutritionist, and Emily McKee is a dietitian for the Vegan Society. Now, Emily, first of all, why do you think, I mean, you are vegan, why do you think the rest of us should be as well?
Well, there's a lot of evidence that, other than obviously the animal rights side of things, there's a lot of evidence that following a vegan diet has multiple health benefits. So obviously the study that came out recently was thinking about healthy aging, and there's a growing body of evidence that vegan diets can support longevity, they can support the reduction in developing chronic diseases. So those are the long-term diseases such as cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes and cancers. So there's a range of health benefits associated with vegan diets as well.
You see, Emily, I think that's amazing that you mentioned that. Now, if that is true, and if that can be proven, and if people begin to believe that, then people are intrinsically selfish. People only really care about themselves. And you've just said to me that you could put your finger on the button to slow up aging there. That's basically what you're saying. We could live longer, we could look younger if we were vegan.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure about looking younger, but there is evidence that aspects that form a really strong part of a vegan diet. So we're talking about fruit and vegetables, nuts and seeds, legumes. There's evidence that's come out in the last couple of years that these aspects of your diet can improve your life expectancy. So the more of these you eat, the more the longer that you might live. And that is true for any age that you start increasing these foods in your diet. So there's a lot of foods within a vegan diet that form the basis of a vegan diet that can promote a longer life.
Reece, you're a gut health nutritionist. Is it good for our gut to eat meat?
It is actually good for your gut to eat both meat and plants. The problem with the vegan diet is not the plants. Nobody is disputing that plants are good for you. I think we can all agree that fruits and vegetables are great, and probably people need to eat more fruits and vegetables. But the problem with veganism and vegan diets is the lack of meat, and that's where you get most of your minerals and your vitamins from your diet. The plants feed the bacteria that live inside the gut, and the meat feeds kind of the human cells that we all associate with being human.
We are designed to be carnivores, aren't we? Our teeth would suggest that we're meant to eat meat.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. We have a stomach full of acid, and that acid is there to break down the minerals from the food. If we weren't supposed to eat meat, we wouldn't have a stomach that has acid in it.
Yeah. But you see, all the sort of things that I read and that I see on the internet, on Instagram and whatever, is that plants seem to be, Reece, the solution to the health crisis, all sorts of things, everything from rheumatism to blindness or whatever, that plants seem to be the answer for all of this. You wouldn't agree?
It's not that I disagree that plants are good for you. You know, I think this is a common misconception. People either think you are pro-meat or pro-plants. Why can't you be pro-both?
Yeah, okay. Now, Emily, what would you say to what Reece has just said?
Well, I mean, in terms of gut health, Reece, you're right, plants are really important. And there's more evidence coming out about our microbiome, which is the bacteria that live within our gut and how important they are for our health. And we know that plants can feed the microbiome. So it's about getting enough fibre, and it's about the diversity of plants in your diet as well. So evidence from the British and American Gut Foundation has shown that eating 30 different plants a week is optimum for our gut health. In terms of nutrients from meat, it's true that meat has nutritional value, obviously protein, vitamins and minerals, but these are nutrients that you can also get from plants. So plants contain protein, plants contain a range of vitamins and minerals, and our bodies can digest these as well and use those to feed our cells to give us energy. So I would say that, yes, there is nutritional value, obviously, that you can gain from eating animal products, but you can also get those nutrients from plants.
Yeah, guys, I'm really sorry about the sound quality we have today, but it's getting in the way of what we're trying to hear from you. But Emily, breakfast time or your next meal, you look a very healthy person. You look really good on it. It's not that we can look and say, oh, look at her. Well, what do you expect? She's a vegan. She looks absolutely brilliant. So what are you going to have? What's your next meal going to be, just to see if I'm going to lick my lips or not?
So I've already eaten breakfast, actually. I'm an early breakfast person. Lunch for me, probably, as a lot of my meals focuses around a source of carbohydrate, so probably some pasta. Tend to add a source of protein. So, for example, tofu would probably be what I'm going for today. Roasted Mediterranean vegetables and some kind of rich tomato sauce.
OK, and what about you then, Reece? What are you going to have to eat next?
I'd eat the same thing I recommend everyone eat almost every meal, is some animals and some plants, because unlike what Emily was saying before, there are certain minerals that you can't get from plants. Zinc is a fantastic example. There are certain B vitamins that you can't get from plants. And also the vitamins and minerals that are available in plants are not in the ideal form for your body to use and absorb.
OK, guys, we're going to leave it there. We just have technically a few issues. I'm very sorry about that, but hopefully we got the message from both of you. Thank you very much indeed. And folks, after watching and listening to that, are you tempted to go vegan? Do you lead a vegan lifestyle? And does it agree with you? What do you have to say?
And the general consensus is they're not going vegan, the GB News viewers. North East Boys says, how do vegans get their protein? The vegans that I know all look very sick and pasty-faced.
Well, Emily looked very well.
Yeah, Miguel says the Inuit are the healthiest people on the planet and their predominant food source is whale blubber and seal meat.
Who eats that?
The Inuit people.
Oh, my goodness me.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there we go. What are you having for breakfast? Let us know. Coming up, we'll be going through the papers. Don Neeson, and after he's had his breakfast, Christopher Biggins will be here.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M8 in Renfrewshire, there's a lane closed westbound at junction 30 at Erskine Bridge after an accident. On the M62 in Greater Manchester, 2 out of 3 lanes are closed westbound, but overnight roadworks have overrun between junctions 21 and 20 near Rochdale. There are queues from junction 22 at Richworth Moor. Train services in Norfolk are suspended between Acle and Lingwood because of an obstruction on the line. In Suffolk, the A1120 is partly blocked westbound by an accident between Arsoe and Ashfield. In London, the A409 is closed by Harrow College because of a burst water main. Gatwick Express train services are suspended because of a signalling problem, with Southern suspended from Three Bridges into Victoria. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking half an hour in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. Train services are suspended between Southampton Central and Salisbury because of a signalling problem. And in Devon, the A386 is closed north of Bury Tavy after an accident.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hooray! I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, we're going through the papers now, and joining us this morning is former editor of the Daily Star, Don Neeson, and actor and presenter Christopher Biggins. Good to see you both this morning.
Good to see you.
Biggins, let's talk about GPs who are, according to The Sun, going to grind the NHS to a halt.
Well, I know. I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, it's getting worse and worse. The whole NHS is crumbling before our very eyes. Now it's GPs. It's the first time in 60 years they could bring the NHS to a standstill. I mean, it's bad enough seeing a doctor, let alone...
You can't get an appointment as it is.
No, I know, let alone all these things happening. They've besotted with now a new row over the contract for GP services in England. I mean, I think that, like Eamonn, you said earlier on, you've got to look at these things and look at the real reasons why they're not working. I mean, you know, the NHS is besotted with a huge amount of people who we never know what they do, and they take a fortune.
It's the 5th biggest employer in the entire world.
Is it the entire world?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is, I think, only the Chinese army is up there for beating it, really. But it's a huge employer, but the amount of waste is ridiculous. And a part of me feels sorry for GPs because, like NHS dentists, they have been buried under the amount of red tape and regulations they have to put up with. The rotas, the boxes they have to tick, the hours they can do and can't do, and what they have to do, and the forms they have to fill in. So it just needs someone with half a brain cell to go in there and reorganise it. I mean, the amount of waste in the NHS is just staggering.
I mean, and we can sit and talk about the amount of waste and how awful that is and whatever it is, but I put it to you, if any of us or people that were close to us were ill, it's the first place we go, and that's when you realise you need it. You don't realise you need it until you are ill.
You're absolutely right, and that is very true. I remember as a child that the doctor would come to our house.
Gosh, yeah.
You know, and and you became friends.
Yeah.
They were a friend, not a
personal relationship.
Exactly, and it was wonderful. Dr. Drummond was our doctor.
And you can still remember, exactly.
Yeah, and he was fantastic.
And the reason we don't do that now is what? Cost?
Well, presumably.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Or, I mean, I think the doctors would like to have more of a personal relationship with their patients.
Well, also, Biggins, I remember our doctor, Dr. Paul McKeown, and you're right, family, friends and all that, they become that...
have a cup of tea?
Yeah, and you wanted to aspire to be like that.
Yes.
Oh, only one of my children could be like that, or my son could be like that. That's it, my daughter could be like that. And is it a role that people would aspire to nowadays? I mean, I think society, I think often the way we treat people, the way we regard them, what we pay them, I think often the state is to blame.
And I think anybody in that job would run a mile. Who would want... It's like being who would want to be Prime Minister of this country? Nobody. You don't get paid anything. You know, it's a no-go situation. And I think it's the same with doctors, and I think it's the same with dentists.
It is,
You know, it's not like it was. I'm lucky enough to have a very good relationship with our doctors, National Health doctors, and my dentist. But that's, you know, I'm a minority.
Yeah, you would be in the minority, yeah.
But also you're Biggins.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're saying Mr. Jones, would it
well, that's
be
true, I
exactly
suppose.
the same? Dawn, tell us about artificial intelligence. We talk about it a lot.
Yes.
And this is when it crosses a line now, and you can see, and I can understand this, how people can form romantic relationships with robots, computers.
How can you understand that?
Well, I can understand there's so many lonely, there's so many ugly people in the world. But there are. There's so many people, you know...
So they fall in love with their computer?
That nobody would love. Absolutely nobody would love them.
Oh, no, sure. There's always somebody who'll love you.
No. I think there are lots.
No, I think there's someone for everyone.
Definitely don't. Definitely don't agree with you.
Any case, the story...
And I think there'll be lots of people out there who will be saying, yes, I am one of those ugly, stupid people that nobody wants anything to do with. I've got bad breath.
Oh, God.
If you are one of those ugly, stupid people out there and you'd like to get in touch and tell us your story...
Also, humans are very complicated.
That bit's true.
If you understood a robot and a robot understood you...
That bit is true.
We were saying earlier today that, you know, it's impossible. I find it impossible to think you could ever meet somebody and have a relationship for the rest of your life because we're so complicated. We're so different. You know, it's a real...
through different stages. You know, we're a different person in their 20s, then we are in our 30s, then we are in our 40s, then we are in our 50s.
Yeah.
But you could grow together, she says, hopefully.
Yeah, but you have an amazing relationship with your husband.
Well, only because he never sees me. We're always in different places. That's the way to do it. Yeah, I've moved in here. In any case, this story, folks, is from philosopher Nick Bostrom, and he's being backed by Bill Gates and Elon Musk, which is even more worrying. He's saying that... younger generations than us lot, they will be saying, I do to bots, because we're going, oh my God, that's weird, how can you fall in love with a robot? But he is saying for the generations to come who have been brought up, let's be honest, with little mini computers in their hands from day one, literally.
They have no personality anyway, so they might as well have a relationship with a machine.
Exactly. So, yeah, if you're
You can't cuddle a machine, though, can you? You can't sort of have a nice little peck on the cheek.
Yeah, well, these are sort of like the robots of the future, where they will be sort of like made of soft, cuddly stuff.
Oh, really?
I'm not going any further with this one. Can we talk about something else?
Let's go to the break, and when we go back, we'll have more from Christopher and Dawn, and let's see what they have to say after this.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Karen Stevenson was born in Stoke-on-Trent and read music at Trinity College, Cambridge. She's played cello with many of the world's great orchestras under the batons of some of the most renowned conductors, and she joins me now to discuss her career and the importance of music in education. Tell me about that. What is your role at the Philharmonia?
My role at the Philharmonia is number 2 cello. I've been there for about 15 years. Sometimes I play number 1 cello as well, which is a great opportunity for me.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I often think what a very difficult life it is to be a professional musician.
I make a living out of it. It is definitely possible. Yeah, we don't really like it when we get into a taxi and someone says, "What's your day job?" Because we work really hard.
I was kind of making the opposite point. Not that you'd also have a day job. I think the perfection that is required for a professional musician is extraordinary. On the whole, we are intolerant of mistakes in classical music.
Yes, we are.
And I just wondered whether you don't become very frustrated with a world in which everything else is imperfect.
You are only as good as your last concert, Michael. That's how it feels. It is a lot of pressure. Sometimes we will say, OK, a pint for every wrong note or something, but depending on the piece of music, that could be quite dangerous.
How many hours a day do you have to practice?
You have to practice much more when you're younger, I think, when you're learning. I think this is really important. And when you're at music college, I'm a busy, I'm travelling, I have a family. I can't practice as much as I used to, so you have to rely on your experience. What I really wanted to say is that there's been a lot of fear-mongering about classical music being in decline and it not being relevant. And I really wanted to say that I don't think that's the case. Our audiences have increased. They're the highest they've been in 10 years.
The People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
We are back with Biggins and Dawn Neeson going through the papers. And Biggins, let's look at the Mail, shall we? It's D-Day for Giovanni Panice. This is the BBC's bullying investigation into Strictly Come Dancing.
Well, I find this whole story very strange. I mean, anybody that... I've been asked to do it about twice or 3 times, and I've always turned it down because it's too difficult. I mean, if you accept to do this job, you have to work hard. And if people who don't realise that are stupid, and yes, you get paid a lot of money, but you've got to work.
You don't get paid a lot of money.
You don't get paid a lot of money. No, you probably don't. You're right.
You don't. You're not going to sit and discuss. I'll tell you, everybody gets paid. They don't get paid a lot of money.
No, but I mean, what is so interesting about it? It is a hard job. It's like becoming a professional dancer.
Yeah.
And I can see that people might get a bit irritated, and also I've heard stories like women celebrities going in and saying to their dancing instructor, oh, I can only stay until 12 because I've got a coffee morning with my girlfriends. Well, you can't do that. If you're committing yourself to a serious competition like this, where people want to win, you have to commit yourself.
And why would you want to enter it if you didn't want to win? I mean,
absolutely.
One of the reasons I wouldn't enter is I'd be no good at it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
useless.
me.
Yeah.
And me. I'd be absolutely useless. And there are other things you can do. Like the jungle, where you don't have to have any of that talent. All you need to do is just have a personality and go in and charm people.
And not be frightened of rats.
And not be frightened of rats, exactly. But, you know, this
and
is...
eat kangaroo willies.
It's interesting that Giovanni, who I've met and is absolutely charming, is, you know, he's up for grabs with the ITV now because, of course, they think he's very popular and they're going to put him in the jungle, I think. And, of course, that will be wonderful because everybody who hates him will love to see him suffer.
Well, he's confident he's going to be cleared of all wrongdoing. He thinks his name will be cleared.
Well, there was a 30-minute audio tape, wasn't there, of him, of her, of certain people talking to him, saying how wonderful he was and how marvellous, and they were really enjoying the work. So that would be interesting to see what happens today.
Well, you can say nothing these days. What is it, guys? And someone told me last night about a commentator, swimming commentator at Talk Sport. Not Talk Sport. Eurosport.
Yeah.
Eurosport. And he said something like, "Oh, the women aren't here yet, but you know what women are like when they stop to see a mirror and start putting their makeup on. They're always late for everything."
It's the Australian
Words
swimming
to that
team.
effect.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's right. And Dawn's putting on that face, which is
no.
I don't think it's right, but I'm going to have to pretend it is right. And the thing is that we can't show he's right in this way or whatever.
I think we are in danger of losing a sense of humour, and I think what he said as a woman I didn't find offensive in any way, shape or form. I say far worse, maybe it's because I'm older, far worse things about men, joking about men, etc., etc. You need a sense of humour, and I think what he said, it's like, oh, it was a throwaway joke. I mean, the Australian women's football swimming team coming out, they're taking their time because they're putting their makeup on. There are far more things going on with that opening ceremony in particular that I found offensive as a woman than a throwaway harmless joke about, a stereotyping of the sexes. I mean, it was harmless.
Whether it's Strictly, whether it's the Olympics, when people out there believe they have the power to have you cancelled, they love it. They absolutely. And what does it achieve? That man losing his job, what does that achieve?
Nothing. It's ridiculous. I mean,
and that's why Eamon's right. You've got to be so careful what you say.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll just grab anything now.
It doesn't stop you, Biggins, though, does it?
Well, I said charmingly, I hope.
Yeah, and you've got a free pass. I think she's just so charming. Dawn, talking of offence, can we look at this story in the Telegraph? This is the RAF. They're dropping their Crusaders nickname.
Yes.
Following a complaint that it's offensive to Muslims.
Yeah, well, this is our RAF.
Can I say something before we go on talking about Muslims? Why does no one get offended with anything towards Christianity? You never hear anyone saying, this was banned because it was rude towards Christianity. Because no one cares less. But we have to care less about every other religion in the land. I just make the point.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if, we saw from Charlie Hebdo that if you upset some religions, then the consequences can be much graver than Christianity. And we saw that in the opening ceremony again, didn't we? But the RAF, this is an RAF squadron, the 14 Squadron, one of the RAF's longest-serving and most senior squadrons, who were linked with conflict in the Middle East, have been forced to drop their Crusaders tag, which is on their badge, because someone has said it is offensive to Muslims. I'm pretty sure it wasn't any Muslims that said it was offensive to Muslims, because most people go, well, it's just get on with it. But, the Crusades were a series of religious wars between Christians and Muslims during the medieval era. This has been on the badge since this squadron were invented, and now the RAF saying, as a modern and diverse service, that word again, our focus must not be on giving prominence to any offensive term. So they are removing it. And lots of people serving in the squadron of all faiths are going, oh, dear. It's just stupid, basically.
OK. Taylor Swift. Because
yes,
if you want to see Taylor Swift in concert in Munich, What's been drawing attention with this one?
Well, this is a fantastic story because, you know, she's been playing to these huge crowds, absolutely vast. And then I think she got a bit sort of upset by the fact that in Munich, there outside the stadium, there is a hill, a bit like Henman's Hill in Wimbledon, where and suddenly everybody decided that's a good idea. Rather than pay these huge amounts of money to sit in the stadium, I'll go to the hill.
I'm not surprised.
No.
I think it's extortionate.
Extortionate. And 70,000 people, I think, were able to see the concert for nothing. And I think it's rather wonderful. It's a great picture there. Look at it.
It's amazing.
Has Tina said anything about what she thinks of this?
Well, I read in one paper today that I think she was quite pleased and yet sort of, perhaps it was her management who were not too pleased with the fact that 70,000 people watched the concert for nothing. But I think it's rather wonderful. I mean, and it looks fantastic.
It's great publicity, isn't it, just to see that many people who want to see the show.
Do you think they'll change the name now of the Henman Hill to...
Murray Mount.
Murray Mount.
It was Murray Mount for a while, wasn't
already.
Was it?
Yeah, I think they changed it. I don't know what they're going to do now, though. Yeah. Now he's retired.
I know, wasn't it great to see his smile on his face when he won yesterday?
Oh, it was
amazing.
It was really exciting.
And it's been great to see you two.
On all our faces when these two are back in 40 minutes.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Plenty of sunshine across much of the UK, turning increasingly hot over the next couple of days, particularly across England and Wales. And you can see a cloudier start across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland first thing this morning. A weak weather front is producing some rain across the far northwest, largely the Western Isles, but also fringing western coasts into the afternoon. But plenty of sunshine for the vast majority of the UK, perhaps an isolated shower across northern England, southern Scotland, but temperatures rising in that sunshine, 25 to 29 Celsius towards the southeast, low 20s further north and west. Through this evening time, this weather front does just push a little further eastwards, bringing some patchy light rain largely to the Highlands and Islands. Further east, still sunshine holding on there across eastern Scotland. Cloud also encroaching much of Northern Ireland, some patchy rain across the west, slowly spreading eastwards. England and Wales, though, a fine end to Monday. Plenty of sunshine, temperatures still holding up the mid to high 20s, so great for an evening walk. And then overnight, this weather front just slowly pushes its way southeastwards, loses most of its so just becomes an area of cloud. Some patchy light rain and drizzle perhaps over the highest ground. Most places dry overnight, prolonged clear spells, but this will still mean temperatures holding up generally in the mid to low double figures. So a warm start to Tuesday, plenty of sunshine across England and Wales. The remnants of this weather front perhaps just giving a little more cloud across parts of northern England later, parts of Wales. Northern Ireland also clouding over through Tuesday, perhaps 1-2 splashes of rain possible. Scotland also bright and sunny. In the sunshine, temperatures rising for many of us, again approaching the high 20s, close to 30 Celsius in the southeast.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News. The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M8 in Renfrewshire, there's a lane closed westbound at junction 30 at Erskine Bridge after an accident. On the M62 in Greater Manchester, 2 out of 3 lanes are closed westbound, where overnight roadworks have overrun between junctions 21 and 20 near Rochdale, with queues from junction 22 at Rishworth Moor. Train services in Norfolk are suspended between Acle and Lingwood because of an obstruction on the line, with trains diverting via Reedham. On the M25 from Hertfordshire into Buckinghamshire, there are anti-clockwise queues from junction 18 at Chorleywood to 16 for the M40 after an accident. In London, the A409 is closed along Brooks Hill by Harrow College because of a burst water main. Cowley Express train services are suspended because of a signalling problem, with Southern suspended from Three Bridges into Victoria. Train services are suspended between Southampton Central and Salisbury because of a signalling problem. And in Devon, the A386 is closed southbound towards Mary Cavey after an accident.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
You really could become the next big Great British Giveaway winner with your chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Listen to what some of our previous winners have to say about winning big with us.
On the day that I got the money in the bank account, everything just seemed a lot sunnier.
But I do have something to spend it on.
Just go for it. It's an absolute must.
Thank you, GBNews.
Amazing feeling to win.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, very good morning. Good to see you. The government plan to sell off publicly owned buildings to raise money for the spending black hole.
Rachel Reeves will announce the move today, with a number of government buildings and land being considered for sale.
The Chancellor says the plans will cut costs and balance the books, accusing the Conservatives of economic mismanagement.
Meanwhile, the Tory party leadership battle continues. Kemi Badenoch has launched her bid overnight.
The positive effect of the Olympic travel chaos. Well, the disruption now means that it's easy to get games tickets and hotel prices are on the way down.
A postcode lottery for IVF. A new report has revealed access to NHS funding is based simply on where you live.
High pressure dominating the weather pattern for the next couple of days. Temperatures rising. Find out how high coming up soon in the forecast.
Hello there, 3 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Apparently it's not 3 minutes past 8, it's only 1 minute past 8, so if you were looking to get the 5 past 8 bus, you're still in with a chance of doing just that. Thanks for your views and comments today on so many things. The IVF treatment, not a lot of sympathy, but then if you're not going through it...
Yeah, lots of you saying, why should I pay for someone else to have a baby?
Yeah.
The Olympics opening ceremony, Amanda says she thought it was excellent.
Right.
It was good fun on the Seine and even a surfing horse. What more could you want?
Yeah. I wonder if all the cultural references like Minions and Assassin's Creed were being paid for, says John. A whole minute of the ceremony spent on Minions. How are they French?
I said exactly the same thing.
Did you?
Did you stay tuned in for that? Because I know that you gave up at some point.
No.
I was there for the Minions and I thought, what is going on?
No.
I thought that for most of it, though, what is going on? And how is it French? It didn't feel very French. Did it feel French to you?
I'm not a fan of opening and closing ceremonies. I just don't.
Oh, no, I think it's great. It's a great show.
What's it got to do
but
with
this
sport?
wasn't.
What's it got to do with it? No, I just...
But it's meant to be about the country, isn't it? Hosting and opening their arms and saying, this is us and this is what we stand for.
OK.
But it wasn't very French this time around.
We were talking about... it says loneliness here. What was
We're
that?
talking about AI and you were saying people are going to fall in love with computers.
No, the papers are saying people are going to fall in love with robots.
And you said you
various
could see
things.
it happening.
Whatever, I could see it happening.
To which Kay said, you're really funny. Thank you for making me laugh, Eamonn.
Well, it's true. It's not laughing. Harry says, if lonely people are going to start having relationships with computers, that can only be bad news for cats. OK. Strictly. The stars don't do Strictly for free. They all get paid handsomely. Why do you know, Fiona? You don't know. They don't get paid handsomely. You work out Strictly, the amount of practice they do, the amount of days they've got to do it, the Saturday night performance. It works out at tuppence halfpenny per programme. Georgina, dance teachers have always been harsh. That's the deal. I did ballet till I was 18, and my God, I can't count how many times my teacher made me cry. Veganism?
Oh, yeah, one on veganism. Robert said lots of people go veggie or vegan because of the way the animals are abused throughout their life. I love the taste and the texture of meat, but I gave up after a visit to a slaughterhouse. They're now called meat processing centres. Yeah, I think that probably would change a lot of people's minds, wouldn't it?
Keep those calls coming in. So the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, will today prepare to deliver her first major speech in the role, and she can confirm a £20 billion black hole in public spending.
Well, the new government looks set to plug the gap by cutting down on government spending and selling off unused buildings.
You won't be able to plug the gap. Absolutely not. 20 billion quid. Oh, just incidentally, we just got this little gap of 20 billion. Plug it. Meanwhile, the Conservative leadership race heats up with the deadline for applications closing this afternoon. Will you be entering, Ellie?
I will not. Will you?
No.
No, I'll tell you who else won't. It's Suella Braverman. She's confirmed she's not going to run to be party leader. She says the party is traumatised. But Kemi Badenoch, she has launched her bid overnight. And joining us now is Shadow Veterans Affairs Minister Andrew Bowie, who's also a big fan of Kemi Badenoch. Many people are. She's the favourite in this race, Andrew. So what's your sales pitch? Why is she the best choice for party leader, in your opinion?
Well, look, I've known Kemi for years. I've got huge respect for what she achieved in government, and I think that she is exactly what the Conservative Party needs if we are to renew and take the fight to the Labour Party and present a credible option for the British people as an alternative government in 4 or 5 years' time. She set out her stall this morning in an opinion piece in the newspaper, setting out how she plans on renewing, on engaging with the membership, on growing our base, and in standing up for Conservative values in this country. I think that's a conversation we need to have, and I fully trust Kemi as the person who can lead that conversation and take us back to where we need to be for Great Britain, and that's in government.
Conservative values, what does that mean? I think people have lost track of what conservative means anymore in this country.
Well, that's exactly the point. People have lost track of what conservatism means in this country. We have talked a good game, but governed poorly over the last few years, and it's up to us to investigate why that is, to speak to our members, those people that support us, those people who want to vote Conservative, but for whom we have not given them an option over the last few years. So that's what Kemi is going to be doing, engaging with those very people over the next few weeks, setting out her stall when it comes to the first round of votes in the building behind me, and then going out to the membership in the months following that. A re-examination of why the Conservative Party matters, what we stand for, a renewed belief in the nation state and what the government should be doing rather than what it is doing right now. I think that's what Britain needs, that's what Kemi's standing for, and that's why I'm very proud to support her.
Well, Andrew, the thing is, the government may not be able to do a lot, or they certainly will not be doing as much as they'd have wanted to, and it's because of your lot and a £20 billion black hole in spending.
Look, we all knew the public finances were in a difficult place. The economy has taken a hammering over the last few years, what with the rapid inflation caused by the illegal invasion of Ukraine, other international factors, gas prices, for example, ramping up the cost of energy, and that's why we took the difficult decisions that we did when we were in government. But the idea that this has come as a bit of a shock to Rachel Reeves of the Labour Party, that they were going to find the public finances in this way, is for the birds. The IFS, all the other organisations, and ourselves, when we were in government, said, look, the situation in the economy is very difficult. That's why tough decisions have to be taken. The fact is the Labour Party went through the last election promising the earth to everyone and neglecting to say how they would pay for it. Well, to govern is to choose, and right now the Labour Party is going to have to make some tough decisions. That's where Rachel Reeves is right now, but she should not be pulling the wool over anybody's eyes. She knew the exact situation that she was inheriting. We had a fully funded manifesto. We were committed to deploying some policies that would alleviate the the burden on the British people and take this country forward. Those were policies that were not adopted by the Labour Party, and now they've got tough decisions to make. So I wish her well in making those decisions, but she really should not be pretending she did not know that this was a very tricky situation that she was walking into.
But Andrew, if you guys knew what the situation was as well, what would your tactic have been? Would you have plugged that 20 billion black hole, or would you not have?
Well, look, we set out our policies in the manifesto. We wanted to go further. We wanted to reduce taxes for everybody in the country, but we made it quite clear that the international economic situation being what it was, our recovery from the pandemic being what it was, that we could not go as far as we wanted to. And that's why we weren't as forthcoming or as optimistic in some of our plans as some of us wanted us to be. And that's why we weren't able to make as many promises as the Labour Party maybe did in their election campaign. But the fact is that Rachel Reeves knew all of this. She knew the difficult economic situation she was walking into. She knew that tough decisions were going to have to be taken. So the idea that she's only found out since she walked through the door of number 11 is frankly nonsense.
Ask your opinion on the comments from Suella Braverman, who we thought would be one of the front-runners in this race, the Tory party leader. She is not going to stand. She says it's because the party is traumatised. She says she has her own diagnosis of what went wrong at the general election and that the party just don't want to hear it. Do you think she has a point?
Look, the party's obviously come through a very difficult election. It's been a very difficult time for all of us who've stood and represented this party, and indeed the party members who slogged away over those weeks, delivering leaflets and campaigning hard to return a Conservative government. But look, I think Suella very much has a place within the Conservative Party. We want to hear what she has to say, and indeed all of those other people who share the same views as Suella. Everybody in this broad church that is the Conservative Party will have a voice and a say in how we renew our movement, renew the country moving forward. So whilst I disagree with her diagnosis, I do welcome her contribution to that debate, and long may she continue to contribute to our Conservative family.
Doesn't affect to reform, which is what's looking increasingly likely.
Well, look, I think Suella's place is within the Conservative Party. We are a broad church, and sometimes you need to listen to difficult things in order to get to the solution and get to where you need to go. I very much hope that Suella decides to stay within the Conservative Party, but of course, Suella's future is entirely within Suella's hands. So, whilst thanking her for her contribution and hoping that she stays with us, it's entirely up to her as to what happens next.
About it being a broad church, I mean, that's entirely true, isn't it? To the state where the party's in absolute chaos with so many warring factions. And then you've got your choice of candidate, Kemi Badenoch, talking about you need more than party unity. Well, party unity would be a really good place to start, would it not?
Well, no, we need to know what we're unifying around. So, of course, we need party unity. Of course, the party needs to come together because the British people do not vote for divided parties. But our first point is to decide what exactly it is that we're unifying around. That surely is where we begin the discussion, where we begin the journey of coming together, of working towards a Conservative government in 4 or 5 years' time. There's no point in saying unity for unity's sake if we don't know what we're unifying around. So, getting that message, understanding what it means to be a Conservative in 2024 and indeed in the next half of this decade is crucial to that exercise of building a united party. That's what Kemi is focused on, and that's one of the reasons that I'm very proud to be supporting her in her bid to be the Conservative Party leader.
Andrew, thank you very much indeed, and what's a very beautiful day there from Westminster. Thank you for your time this morning. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Adam Cherry, our reporter, our man there. Adam, good to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Well, what do you make of all this political turmoil this morning, the runners and riders in the Conservative leadership race, for instance?
I think it was inevitable that Suella Braverman would drop out. She just lacked the support within the party. One of her own supporters, biggest supporters in 2022, Danny Kruger, is now the campaign manager for the other guy, Robert Jenrick, and several others were clearly moving in that direction as well. I think she made it very difficult for herself by sort of posting a post-mortem of why things had gone so badly wrong before the election had even happened. That certainly soured people. And some of her, not necessarily her rhetoric, but her style had over time worn people down. So the right flank will now be occupied by the likes of Priti Patel, you say, Kemi Badenoch, Robert Jenrick. It's still a wide open race in my view. It's a very long race. We won't find out the leader or the winner of this thing until November. So a long time before then. Kemi Badenoch may be the current favourite, but actually conventional wisdom shows that the favourite often doesn't win these things. That's not a prediction, but it is recognition of how things go in the past. And given the length of the race, I think it's all to play for.
Gosh, the length of the race is going to go on forever.
Yeah.
But Suella Braverman, where do you see that playing out? Would it be impossible to imagine her joining Reform, for instance?
Yeah, I think that's a serious possibility. She has made some overtures towards that position in the past. She's not hostile to Nigel Farage and Reform. Whether that happens overnight, I'm not sure. Again, it's mostly conjecture at the moment, but given that she has now dropped out of the race, things now become more interesting in that respect. So perhaps behind the scenes, things are moving in that direction, but I wouldn't expect that to happen for a while yet. But as I say, it's not off the table now, definitely.
Can I ask you about Rachel Reeves addressing Parliament today in her first major speech, essentially saying the outlook looks really bleak?
Yeah, £20 billion specifically. So let's go through what we expect today. So that will happen at 3:30 today, her speech. It's really going to be a blame game. We'll see a Treasury audit which will go some way in explaining where this figure has come from and why it seems to have emerged so quickly after the election as opposed to before it when they needed to campaign for votes. What we won't see today is specific tax-raising measures. If and when those come, they will come in the budget, which will be announced today and dated today for the autumn. That's when we might see measures like raising capital gains tax, raising inheritance tax. Remember, they've said they will not raise taxes on working people, so personal taxes like income tax, national insurance and VAT. So they have limited levers they can pull, but those are where we will see them. What we will see today also is some spending cuts, spending efficiencies. So no more consultants in the civil service. Whitehall is bloated with these things and they cost a lot of money. Some infrastructure projects like rail, the HS2 line to Euston, that may be shortened. Things like that, and as you said earlier in the programme, buildings being sold off, government buildings which aren't in use anymore. Now that will cover some of that, but it won't cover 20 billion. So there'll be questions of what to expect in the budget, and that will be the dialogue after today. But as I say, it's really warming the country up for what will be very difficult choices ahead.
Adam, appreciate it. Thank you very much for your analysis. We'll leave it there. Now, IVF, which has got a lot of reaction from you today, not necessarily all favourable. A new report has revealed that NHS funding of IVF has reached its lowest level since 2008.
Yes, access has become a postcode lottery. North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper sat down with one former patient to hear her story.
I just know I'm made to be a mum. So to me, it's happening. It is. I am going to be a mum one day. So 4 of them pre-filled syringes.
Last year, Katie West began her first round of NHS-funded IVF.
Where are you putting it?
Despite the injections, the hospital appointments, the nervous waits, Katie remained positive.
They rang me on the Monday morning and it was a lady from the lab and she said, "I'm so pleased to tell you." And as soon as she said that, I just screamed down the phone. I was like, "Oh my God, my little miracle embryo." It's like, it's going to work. It's happening. This here is a tube where they just shot it out and I got to watch that on the screen. It was magical. And honest to God, that was the best day ever.
However, a week later, Katie began to bleed and she knew that something was seriously wrong.
I just had a gut feeling because during the week I was waiting, I felt like I could feel it implanting. I had all these little signs and symptoms, but then when the bleeding started, I felt like I just knew that it was over.
Devastated, Katie knew her one chance with NHS funding was over. Because of where she lives, if she ever wanted to try IVF again, she would have to pay.
A new report has found that in 2022, the NHS funded just 27% of all IVF cycles in the UK. That's the lowest level since 2008. And what it means is that for almost 3/4 of patients attempting to conceive that way, they're forced to face the financial burden alone.
The report also found a staggering difference in how a person's location can affect their chances at funding. For Katie, she was told she would only have one chance. Yet just a few miles down the road, other women she knew were being given 2 or 3 opportunities for their IVF treatments to work.
I think it's amazing we have NHS, and we do get funding. But I just think one try isn't enough. It's not giving you half as much chance, even to get your body and mentally prepared for it. I just think, I think 3 tries we should definitely be all entitled to.
Commenting on the so-called postcode lottery of IVF funding, the Department of Health and Social Care told GB News everyone should have access to the fertility services they need, regardless of where they live. There is clear clinician guidelines making sure there is equal access across the country, and we fully expect these to be followed.
So I'm now home from my egg retrieval.
Yet, despite these guidelines, for many women like Katie, their first chance at IVF was their only chance at IVF. Sophie Reaper, GB News.
Lots of you getting in touch on that story. Brenda says, I'm sorry, I'm going to sound really selfish here, but I don't agree that IVF should be on the NHS. The waiting lists for surgery are long enough. If I don't get at least one of my knees replaced by the end of this year, I'm going to be in a wheelchair. I'm struggling with walking sticks right now, says Brenda.
Let's have a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom. Job centre security guards will stage their 4th week-long walkout over pay. The GMB union have said more than 1,500 of its members will strike until Saturday. In addition, they say they do a dangerous job, with 90% of them paid the minimum wage.
New video has emerged which is believed to capture the lead-up to the moment a now suspended police officer kicked and stamped on a man at Manchester Airport. The latest video, which has been obtained by Manchester Evening News, has been released as police attempt to pinpoint the events leading up to the separate, widely shared video, which has sparked protests since it emerged on social media. They're now appealing for witnesses to a confrontation on a Qatar Airways flight or Terminal 2's baggage hall.
The acclaimed Irish author Edna O'Brien has died at the age of 93. Her literary agent said she passed away peacefully on Saturday after a long illness. She was best known for her portrayal of women's lives against repressive expectations in Irish society.
Now at 8:20, it's time for a look at the weather with Greg.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Plenty of sunshine across much of the UK, turning increasingly hot over the next couple of days, particularly across England and Wales. And you can see a cloudier start across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland first thing this morning. A weak weather front is producing some rain across the far northwest, largely the Western Isles, but also fringing western coasts into the afternoon. But plenty of sunshine for the vast majority of the UK, perhaps an isolated shower across northern England, southern Scotland, but temperatures rising in that sunshine, 25 to 29 Celsius towards the southeast, low 20s further north and west. Through this evening time, this weather front does just push a little further eastwards, bringing some patchy light rain largely to the Highlands and Islands. Further east, still sunshine holding on there across eastern Scotland. Cloud also encroaching much of Northern Ireland, some patchy rain across the west, slowly spreading eastwards. England and Wales, though, a fine end to Monday. Plenty of sunshine, temperatures still holding up the mid to high 20s, so great for an evening walk. And then overnight, this weather front just slowly pushes its way southeastwards, loses most of its umph, so it just becomes an area of cloud. Some patchy light rain and drizzle perhaps over the highest ground. Most places dry overnight, prolonged clear spells, but this will still mean temperatures holding up generally in the mid to low double figures. So a warm start to Tuesday, plenty of sunshine across England and Wales. The remnants of this weather front perhaps just giving a little more cloud across parts of northern England later, parts of Wales. Northern Ireland also clouding over through Tuesday, perhaps 1 or 2 splashes of rain possible. Scotland also bright and sunny. In the sunshine, temperatures rising for many of us, again approaching the high 20s, close to 30 Celsius in the southeast.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now there's some good news for you this morning. There is still plenty of time to win £30,000 in tax-free cash in the Great British Giveaway.
Wiser, here's how.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year so far, and it's totally tax-free. What would you spend that on? Luxury holidays, a new car, or just put it away for a rainy day? Whatever you do with £30,000 in tax-free cash, make sure you don't miss out on a chance to make it yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
So how good would it be to win that? Still to come, Olympian Chris Sakabusi will tell us his story, and he predicts who will win big in Paris. That's coming next.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Oh no, just when I thought it was safe, here we go round again. The target this time is one of the most recognisable landmarks in London. Standing at 176 feet tall, the Albert Memorial was commissioned by Queen Victoria in 1862 to honour her late husband, Prince Albert, and was built 10 years later, a year and a century before I was born. Now, situated in Hyde Park, the monument depicts a gold statue of the Prince, alongside 4 groups of large statues which represent the 4 continents of the world: Asia, America, Africa and Europe. Now, the statues representing Asia include a woman on an elephant. America is represented by a Native American with a bison. Africa shows a woman riding a camel, and there's a white European woman reading a book to a black African tribesman. Now, the Royal Parks website claims that these statues draw on racial stereotypes. The Royal Parks, who manage parks in London, deemed it as highly offensive because it reflects a Victorian view of the world. Of course, it reflects a Victorian view of the world. It was built in the Victorian era by request of Queen Victoria. Shock, horror. And it only reflects this view, if you even know what that is. Why would this be offensive? Surely you could at least appreciate the fact and the feat of this artwork, which is quite impressive, even now. Daily Mail journalist Robert Ardman went on a tour of those incredible tunnels, and he said it goes on and on like the catacombs until you realise that you're actually going round and round a series of concentric circles. This is a monument in itself to the technical rigour and pride which went into the Victorian engineering. Exactly.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions.
That raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return.
And a few surprises along the way.
Might be cold in this studio.
That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Team GB, another bronze medal yesterday. That takes their medal haul to 4. They could today prove even more successful.
Yeah, they got a silver last night as well, didn't they, with Adam Peaty in the pool. Diver Tom Daly is hoping to bag Team GB's first gold in the men's synchronised 10-metre this morning. It's all to play for.
Yeah, let's talk about all of this with our own very favourite Olympian, Mr. Chris Akabusi. Hello, Chris. Good morning to you.
Hi, guys.
And for you, Chris, best showing at the Olympics that you took part in was what?
So I had 3 Olympic Games, 84 LA, 88 Seoul, 1992 Barcelona. It's a great question. For me, my most significant Olympics was 1984 because it was my first one. I was fresh. It was unexpected. I'd only been doing athletics seriously for a couple of years. And that was a magical experience, going to LA, the jet pilot coming in on his pack, all of the glamour of the games, the way the Americans did it, the first commercial Olympics. And I surprised myself and everybody else by running the personal best on the flat 400 and then getting an Olympic silver medal with a 4x4 relay. So that was probably my most significant one. And I know that all the people that are going to be at Paris, they're going to have these different stages, Eamonn. You know, they're going to be people going there for the very first time. It is magical. It is awesome. And then you'll be people at the other end who may be going there for the very last time. It's do or die, there is no try. And in the middle, you get those people who have what I call that 36-month window where you are at your peak, at your zenith. This is it. You have got the potential to make the final, to get the podium, get the big G, baby, get the big G.
And Chris, can you believe it's been 40 years since LA now? That is absolutely extraordinary. And what is that like for you now, watching the athletes step out 40 years on? You must know exactly how they're feeling, that mix, you imagine, of nerves and pressure and excitement.
Absolutely. So I was, only 2 days ago, the British Olympic Association, absolutely phenomenal. What they do is they remember their veterans. And so 25 years, 30 years, I got my 40th anniversary card and it said, once an Olympian, always an Olympian, signed by, and you know, okay, it's probably automated, clearly, yeah, someone signs it, might be an administrator. But the very fact that your association marks your experience of climbing Mount Olympus, where the air is fresh and clean, that rarefied air, where you're one of a specific group of guys that actually go and do battle in the Olympic mountains of God. It's phenomenal. It's great. And you're going to have people like that who, for the very first time, got their note from HRH saying, you've been selected to represent your country. They've gone down to the hotel and they've seen streams of other Olympians and they've got their gear. They've got their gear, they've got their tracksuit, they've got their uniform. And all of a sudden you're on the plane, or in this case, the Eurotunnel, and you're going there and you're surrounded, and then you go into the village and you get all your signature and stamp. It's actually happening. You're part of the Olympic family. It's just an amazing experience. It really is sui generis, one of a kind.
When we talk about the experience, it's amazing to listen and hear you enthuse about the whole experience, because I would have thought, Chris, it was all about what we just saw there, being on the track. So I personally have no time for opening and closing ceremonies and all the nonsense that goes with them, and I thought Friday night was a bit of a bore, I have to say. But this is what it's all about, what we're seeing here. But you actually, you obviously are taking something away from the whole overall theatre of it all.
Yeah, so it's like a funneling system. You know, you are right. You've got that. Everything that I talked about, that whole experience is really, really important to get yourself. That's what makes it special, sui generis. You know, this really matters, and it funnels into that moment where you actually hit the track and you've got to do it. All the talk is over, all the camaraderie is over. You're then in your little tunnel vision. It's about you. It's about your 4, 6, 8 years of training. It's about going on the beat of the bang. It's about letting it happen. It's about connecting to the universe. I don't want to get too woo-woo, but connecting into this flow state. There, hopefully you deliver, get your big G, or in my case, silver medals and bronze medals, and then you come through the other side, and then all of your life afterwards begins to open up ahead of you as you become the Olympian and you act like Olympian and you get fated. And I don't know if it's unique to the United Kingdom. I know the Americans don't get this, but here, I'm speaking to you 40 years later, and I still get stopped in the streets. I still get asked, what was it like 40 years after I went through that prison? That is the effect of going to Olympics and delivering in the arena.
Yes, that's the good side. The bad side is being Adam Peaty. He gets a silver medal, but he wasn't champion. He was beaten by 0.02 of a second. How does he respond today after that?
So, Eamonn, we are talking about the thinness of a vest on a very cold day. That is the margin. Now, Adam has got a stellar career. This is his 3rd Olympics. He's won two golds already in the 100-metre breaststroke. He had a break, mental health issues, etc., connected himself to his God and to his family. Lastminute.com has come back in. Wasn't quite sure how it was going to go. And he has got an Olympic silver medal by the thinness of a vest. Yesterday he said his tears were tears of joy. We can stand back in the arena and look in and think, only a silver. He can say, pinnacle of my career, I've done it for you, son. I've done it for my family. And I'm complete. Because ultimately, I don't remember, well, in fact, I do remember the silver medal. You don't remember the silver medal. I remember the silver medal, but I remember the whole experience. So you know, he'll go away, he'll reflect. Of course, he'll realise how close he was to being Steve Redgrave, Chris Hoy, you know, one of those ephemeral guys. But he's done it. He's done his bit. That's it. There's nothing you can do. It's all over. It's all over. It's done. He might be good enough to come back in 4 years' time, but now it's done. Crack on. And actually, no. It's not done, because he has got other events to do this week, hasn't he? So he's got to recollect himself and make sure he delivers in the relays for the rest of his team.
And I'm sure he will. Chris, looking ahead to the rest of the games, what are your thoughts on Team GB? How are they looking? There's a school of thought that we're expected to win 55 medals this Games. Do you think that's a realistic aim?
I think it's very realistic. So it's going to be behind the 67 we got in London and the 65, I think it was, that we got in Tokyo. But this is the thing. There's something called social facilitation. In London, every single athlete rode on the wave of energy and goodwill from the home crowd. You know, in any sport, when you're at home, you perform better than when you're away. Why do I set that up? Because I'm sure we're aware that France will have their best Olympic Games in 40 years, because they are at home. So you've got China, you've got United States of America, probably got the wrong, USA, China, France, Japan off the back of Tokyo will have that wave effect like we did off the back of London in Rio de Janeiro. So you've got Japan, and then you're going to have us scrapping with the Germans and the Canadians and stuff. So top 5, brilliant. 55, brilliant. We could supersede ourselves. We've got lots of great young talent coming through, especially in my sport, track and field athletics. Great young talent coming through. So strap in, screw that knob on, and let's check it out, see what goes on. It's going to be a great game. I can't wait for the track and field athletics to start, by the way.
Yeah, well,
yeah, we can't wait either.
When track and field is there, it really begins. But fantastic. Thanks for whetting our appetite, Chris. Much appreciated, and hopefully we'll speak again before the games are over. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Chris.
Bless you guys. You're looking fabulous, by the way.
So are you, Chris. Thank you.
What are you wearing there today? What is that tracksuit?
Yeah, this is a Team GB pullover. I wanted to represent. I wanted to show that, yes, this old codger was one of you guys too. Check it out.
Well done, you. Well done, you. Well done. Good lad. OK, we're going to take the break. We're going to be back. We've got Dawn Neeson, we've got Chris Biggins. They've got the papers right after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M8 in Renfrewshire, there's a lane closed westbound at junction 30 at Erskine Bridge after an accident. On the M62 in Greater Manchester, there are long westbound delays from junction 23 at Huddersfield to 20 at Rochdale after overnight roadworks overran earlier. Train services in Norfolk are suspended between Acle and Lingwood because of an obstruction on the line and being diverted via Reedham. On the M48 in Gloucestershire, there's a lane closed eastbound just before junction 1 at Ost after animals on the motorway causing queues. In London, the A409 is closed along Brooks Hill by Harrow College because of a burst water main. Cowie Express train services are suspended because of a signalling problem, with Southern suspended from Three Bridges into Victoria. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking half an hour westbound approaching the M25 because of roadworks, and train services are suspended between Southampton Central and Salisbury because of a signalling problem. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss my big opinion. Mark Meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Go and get another glass of that bubbly, you've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, we're going through the papers now. A former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and actor and presenter Christopher Biggins. Very good morning to you.
Morning.
Good morning. Dawn, let's start with this story, shall we? The Dutch Olympic team have admitted to protecting a child rapist.
Yeah, this is the weirdest. I mean, we're all very aware of the story. I mean, this is he was he's a Dutch volleyball player called Steven van der Velde, and he is 29 years old. And when he was 19, he was convicted of raping a 12-year-old British girl. There has been a 90,000-strong petition to have him disqualified from the Games, but the Dutch team have insisted he is playing. They played yesterday, cheered on by Dutch fans, but booed by pretty much everybody else. After the game, Van der Velde refused to give, well, didn't refuse, he's not forced to give interviews. Part of the contract for the athletes is they give interviews after they've competed. He has been excused by the Dutch team for this. And when the boss of the Dutch team was asked why this was the case, literally, you know, it's not a good look, you protecting a child rapist, is it? He said, we are protecting a child rapist to do his sport as best as possible for a tournament for which he qualifies, which is really the strangest answer to give. Yes, we're protecting a child rapist. Why are you so bothered about it? And it's just like, you know, of all the things that, you know, we were talking earlier on, Eamonn, about the Eurosport DJ commentator who was sacked for making a joke about women doing their makeup. Completely inoffensive. Most women have more of an issue with a child rapist competing in the Games. It's just like, it's... any case.
I heard his teammate speaking as part of an interview. He, of course, was taking part in the interviews after the game. And he said, look, he was punished, he served his time, he's reformed. Essentially. But then the question is, should a rapist be in the Games?
Well,
even
I
if
think
they have been punished?
It's a very tricky one, and I think probably 90,000 people are right to actually sign a petition.
OK, let's talk. Biggins, you said you're going to Barcelona today?
Barcelona, yes.
Interesting. You know, we've got two holiday stories for people who are going to Barcelona and for people who are going to Venice. I've never been to Venice.
What?
No, never been, no.
Don't be silly.
Never been, never. No.
Oh, Eamonn, you've got to go.
Well, I hear it's full of rats and...
That's just the tourists.
Yeah, no.
It's fantastic.
Some people says it's not all it's cracked up to be.
Oh, it's a wonderful...
I love Venice.
Oh, you should go. You should at least go for 4 days every year. It is just... It's like Las Vegas. It is just wonderful. There's nothing like it.
Well, people who live in Venice and people who live in Barcelona... are basically saying they're a bit fed up with tourists. Now, this is a very dangerous line to tread, because what would they be without the tourists? I mean, what is the benefit of being there, living there, or running a business from there if you don't have tourists? But tell us the stories, Biggins.
Well, first of all, Barcelona now is set to raise the tourist tax for cruise passengers who visit the city for less than 12 hours as part of the continuing efforts to tackle the consequence of mass tourism. I think, like all these things, I think we should stop tourism. No one should go to Spain and then let them see how they suffer. I mean, I think last year 85.1 million international tourists visited Spain. Now, what must that have brought in financially for all of them? What are they complaining about?
Well, it's a big risk, isn't it? But this is happening, I think it's happening in Majorca as well.
Yes, I know. And they're taken to using water pistols.
That was in Barcelona.
You know, I can't wait to go, as I told you I'm going earlier on, if they come to me with a water pistol, I shall throw a whole gallon of water over them.
Well.
I mean, it'll be an international thing, but it just is ludicrous.
I think an awful lot of people, I've got friends that live out in the Balearics, and this is where it sort of originated from, and it is uncontrolled tourism. And Venice, Eamonn, is hideously crowded at certain times of year. It is very uncomfortable to go to, although it's a beautiful city. So I think, you know, by controlling the levels of tourism is a sensible thing to do. But this campaign originated with a left-wing group trying to make a political point, and it's just spread and mushroomed. But as you say, when people who are campaigning against tourists start physically attacking the tourists themselves, then that's a different matter. I mean, it's like the government needs to control it rather than tourists being attacked. I mean, who wants a water pistol squirted in their face on Las Ramblas, where there was a terror attack not that long ago, remember?
Yeah, but I mean, you look at the tourists who come to our country. I mean, you actually want to kill them all because they're so boring and tedious. And, you know, there they are. They
well, you just can't get anywhere, can you?
No,
especially
as soon as they get in your way, they don't understand. Dawdling, looking at buildings.
London is amazing. The amount of Oriental people in London as tourists...
Huge.
Incredible.
I don't know where... I mean, I don't know where they come from.
You want that because they spend lots of money.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not saying I don't have anything against them. I'm just saying it amazes me that why the attraction from places like China. There seems to
Well,
be
they like
huge
to go to
attraction.
Bicester Village, don't they? Because they're saving an absolute fortune on all the goods.
And it's, yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, I'm lucky enough to live sort of like in East London, so we've got the Tower of London and Tower Bridge, and there are always queues and queues of people too. It's because we've got the history, particularly with the Americans. It's like, you know, if anything's over 100 years old, they think, oh my God, it's ancient history.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, you come here and you've got such amazing history, a long history.
Yeah.
And I think they love the royal family.
They do.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah.
that is a huge...
Well, it is, and people often forget this, what a tourist attraction this is.
Absolutely.
What
And
they're worth to the country. Sorry, we've got to take a break here. We've got to pay the bills. And we'll be back talking more with Dawn and Christopher right after this.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Your mother's story is, if you don't mind me saying, quite tragic. It touched me when I was reading it this morning, Myra, because she has now passed away and she hasn't been here to see kind of justice served, has she?
That's correct. She she died not knowing that she was correct, that Horizon was a flawed system.
And Myra, when you saw, I don't know whether you saw much of Sir Ed Davey during the election campaign, going down water slides, bungee jumping and bouncing around on sort of inflatables. Knowing that he played such a significant role in that difficult period of time with your mum, how did you react to those images?
I'm of the opinion that basically they're all as culpable as each other over all of the years. So I think basically every party had its failings. We knew Horizon was wrong, but nobody would believe us. Even the Postmasters Federation didn't help. They ended up speaking to my mother like she was a thief.
Are you still angry? And what do you want to see from Sir Ed Davey today?
Angry, yes, very angry. I've been furious throughout. Sir Ed Davey today, I know he will apologise. He's already done it. If he means what he says, he'll carry on campaigning to try and get proper redress from the compensation schemes from the thousands of us who still don't have our money. I was made an offer. The £70,000 that went missing, that they stole from us, they offered me 50 because that's all they could find in their records.
The People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Now, do you still have a landline? Because I don't. Do you, Dawn?
No. Sorry, I don't either.
No, you don't?
Well, I have to have it because it's something to do with broadband or whatever, yeah?
No, you can... I've got broadband. You don't need a telephone anymore for broadband.
It's, yeah, I mean, 47% of people in this country now are, have a landline, so the vast majority of us don't, and it's because we just simply don't use them. We're always on our mobiles, aren't we? But and you don't even need it for broadband. We still kept ours, Eamonn, because you did need it for the broadband, especially
well, I know
with
if
BT.
you try and cancel with BT or whatever, it's BT. It's impossible. I've had 2 lines into a house, and you can't cancel both lines together. You've got to spend months between one and the other before they'll allow you. So exactly. I mean, greedy beyond belief.
Absolutely terrible.
Not right, not the right thing to do. But there we go.
But can you remember anyone's phone number now? If you have to call them,
I can remember my original family.
Your childhood
landline,
one, yes. So can I.
And me too.
But I don't know my mum's. I don't know my mum's telephone number now.
Someone telling me 20 years ago that one day we'll all have one number, and they'll be able to reach you anywhere in the world.
That
and you
sounds
can ring.
scary.
And that's come true.
That is true.
Yeah.
You just have that one number.
But don't you think that's just incredible about technology? I remember being at school and they were saying you have to be really, really good at mental arithmetic because you will not be able to walk around with a calculator in your pocket. Well, that's exactly what we do. It's right there.
But we've got to the stage where the landline at home, if it rings now, we both sit there looking at it like going, oh, my God, what is it?
If it rings, you know who it is.
Well, yeah, no one rings on there.
It's either a scam call, or it's certain relations that only use that.
Yeah.
But also, how do the photographs? How many photographs? There are thousands on my mobile.
Oh, yeah.
Where do they all go or come from? It's
the cloud.
How can you possibly ever store them?
You can't.
There's the cloud, whatever the cloud is.
And whatever it means.
So that'll be the end of the landline pretty soon. Right. How William dumped a devastated Kate in a 30-minute phone call. This is on the Mail today. I don't know why.
Oh, news, isn't it?
It's the biography by Robert Jobson, which has been published, adapted from, and this excerpt is adapted from the book, and it's called Catherine, the Princess of Wales, and it's basically going. But we all remember that picture of our Kate when she was at university on the catwalk in that see-through dress, don't we? And that is supposedly when William realised that this was a woman for me, because they split up when she was about 24. They split up for a while, didn't they? But no, evidently, according to Robert Jobson's book, what actually won William back over after they'd had this little break in their relationship was they went to a party, a mutual friend's party, and Kate was dressed as a nurse. Oh. And that persuaded our future king that she was the woman for him.
Nice.
And the rest is history.
You almost forget that happened. I was saying to Eamonn off air, they did break up, didn't they?
They did break up, yeah. Yes, yeah.
How long were they broken up for?
It wasn't long. I think it was about 6, 7, 8 months. I think
he got cold feet, didn't he, basically?
I think the pressure was put on him by his family, to be honest with you. I think they said, look, you've got to really make sure. We've had enough problem with broken relationships in this family. You've got to make sure this is the one. So I think he took time apart. And
thank you to being the one for us today. We've got to say goodbye, Biggins. Thank you very much. Have a great time in Barcelona, my friend.
Thank you very much. I will. I'll send it your love.
Send us pictures.
I'll send you pictures.
Thank you.
Postcards, do you remember those?
Oh, yes.
Who does anybody ever buy postcards?
No, I'm sure I haven't bought a postcard for years.
No.
Oh, well, feel free to send us one if you want.
All right.
That's nice.
Probably
From Barcelona.
Christopher Dawn, thank you very much indeed. We say hello, good morning and welcome to Mr. Greg Dewhurst. He's got your weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Plenty of sunshine across much of the UK, turning increasingly hot over the next couple of days, particularly across England and Wales. And you can see a cloudier start across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland first thing this morning. A weak weather front is producing some rain across the far northwest, largely the Western Isles, but also fringing western coasts into the afternoon. But plenty of sunshine for the vast majority of the UK, perhaps an isolated shower across northern England, southern Scotland, but temperatures rising in that sunshine, 25 to 29 Celsius towards the southeast, low 20s further north and west. Through this evening time, this weather front does just push a little further eastwards, bringing some patchy light rain largely to the Highlands and Islands. Further east, still sunshine holding on there across eastern Scotland. Cloud also encroaching much of Northern Ireland, some patchy rain across the west, slowly spreading eastwards. England and Wales, though, a fine end to Monday. Plenty of sunshine, temperatures still holding up the mid to high 20s, so great for an evening walk. And then overnight, this weather front just slowly pushes its way southeastwards, loses most of its so just becomes an area of cloud. Some patchy light rain and drizzle perhaps over the highest ground. Most places dry overnight, prolonged clear spells, but this will still mean temperatures holding up generally in the mid to low double figures. So a warm start to Tuesday, plenty of sunshine across England and Wales. The remnants of this weather front perhaps just giving a little more cloud across parts of northern England later, parts of Wales. Northern Ireland also clouding over through Tuesday, perhaps 1-2 splashes of rain possible. Scotland also bright and sunny. In the sunshine, temperatures rising for many of us, again approaching the high 20s, close to 30 Celsius in the southeast.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M8 in Renfrewshire, there's a lane closed westbound at junction 30 at Erskine Bridge after an accident. Train services in Norfolk are suspended between Acle and Lingwood because of an obstruction on the line and diverting instead via Reedham. In Suffolk, the A1120 is closed each way between Earlsoe and Ashfield after an accident. Gatwick Express train services are suspended because of a signalling problem, with Southern suspended northbound from Three Bridges into Victoria Station in London. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking 20 minutes in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. In Hampshire, the A3 is partly blocked northbound by an accident just before Clanfield, with queues heading away from Waterlooville. Also in Hampshire, the A31 is partly blocked each way by an accident between Stony Cross and Picket Post, causing delays. And train services are suspended between Southampton Central and Salisbury because of a signalling problem.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year so far, and it's totally tax-free. What would you spend that on? Luxury holidays, a new car, or just put it away for a rainy day? Whatever you do with £30,000 in tax-free cash, make sure you don't miss out on a chance to make it yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. The government planned to sell off publicly owned buildings to raise money for the spending black hole.
Rachel Reeves will announce that move today, with a number of government buildings and land being considered for sale. If you have any suggestions, let us and her know.
The Chancellor says the plans will cut costs and balance the books, accusing the Conservatives of economic mismanagement.
The Tory party leadership battles continue. Kemi Badenoch has launched her bid overnight.
The positive effect of the Olympic travel chaos. The disruption means it's now easy to get games tickets and hotel prices are down for those visiting Paris.
A postcode lottery for IVF. A new report has revealed access to NHS funding is based simply on where you live.
High pressure dominating the weather pattern for the next couple of days. Temperatures rising. Find out how high coming up soon in the forecast.
Hello there, very good morning to you. Just after 9 o'clock on this Monday morning, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Thanks very much indeed for all your comments, things that are keeping us talking today. This Labour spending black hole that we're talking about. Amanda says Labour was adamant in their manifesto that their manifesto was fully costed and fully funded. They have had full access to the books for months. So are they incompetent or fibbers?
Oh, OK, interesting. Amanda says, send illegal migrants home. We'll save millions every day. I think it is about 8 million, isn't it, spent every day on hotels. Amanda says it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Laura, Labour will sell this land off. They love selling off land cheaply. No long-term planning involved in this. I'd just love to know what type of buildings they're talking about. What are the government buildings and who would want them? I mean, say you have an unemployment office in the high street. What would that become? Because there's nothing in the high street anymore.
No?
No.
Who would you be selling it to? Flats?
Yeah. The only thing that exists in the high streets are bakeries, things like Gales and Pret a Manger, or
no bad thing. No.
Nail bars.
No bars.
Barbers.
Yeah.
Undertakers.
Undertakers and cycling shops.
Cycling shops. Oh, very good to go with that. Very good.
That's generally what makes up the British High Street.
Let's speak to the Conservative MP, Helen Whately, on this one, and we'll say good morning to her.
Good morning.
Hiya, Helen. Helen, we were just talking there about the Labour and what they're going to have to do in terms of raising money to plug this black hole. Let's say this hole which you guys created last time around. What would they have to sell off, and would that come anywhere near to plugging £50 billion?
Well, I think what might be helpful is just to start with some of the facts that everyone can agree on, which is that when Labour came into office on the 5th of July, what they took on was an economy that was the fastest growing in the G7, inflation right back down to 2%, the deficit halved since we came into government in 2010, and unemployment at a historic low. So, of course, there was pressures on a government's finances, but actually that was a pretty strong position that they took on, and they knew what they were taking on, because actually these figures are in the public domain, thanks to the Office of Budget Responsibility, the OBR, set up back in 2010 to provide this kind of transparency on the state of the country's finances. So Labour knew what they were taking on, and what I think they're just doing here is setting out a narrative which is going to justify putting up taxes for people in the autumn, and that is something which I just think is a dishonest thing to do, given that during the election campaign Labour said over 50 times that they weren't going to raise taxes, so they were going to do that. They should have told people before they voted.
Well, they would say that they didn't understand the full picture until they were in office. And they say now is about just repairing the damage of 14 years of unfunded promises. They say this is all about economic mismanagement at the hands of the Tories.
Well, what we've already heard is from the Institute of Fiscal Studies, who are a very respected and independent voice on this, that actually that view from Labour simply isn't credible, that they already knew about the public finances. I've said that the OBR gives visibility on that. We had a budget just a few months ago in March, and the books balanced at that time, and that was independently verified by the OBR. So it's not credible to say what they're saying. Of course, I will recognise, having been a government minister in the past, you do face pressures on finances when in government. And one of the significant things is what choices you make. Some of the choices we made was to control public spending and to make sure that we made savings through, for instance, improved productivity. Our manifesto included £12 billion worth of welfare reforms. Labour is not choosing to do that. Instead, it sounds like they're choosing to make cuts to infrastructure projects, infrastructure that's really important for the economy and for communities around the country. And then, as I said, it sounds like they're going to bring forward tax rises, which they really should have told people about in advance.
On the subject of choices that you may make, have you decided yet as regards the Tory leadership?
I haven't declared, I haven't chosen who I'm going to back. Actually, I was one of the MPs who argued for us to have a longer process so that the candidates could set out their vision and also actually listen to the country and spend more time doing that to really learn the lessons from the election. And I want to see our winning candidate be somebody who, yes, can unite our party, but also crucially unite the country and set out a vision that people can get excited about, that recognises the challenges we face as a country, but also seizes the opportunities, aspiration, optimism. This is really important to hear. And also, I know people want to be assured that as and when we get back into government, we can be really competent and we will deliver for them.
That's really interesting that you actually wanted the longer campaign, because you would think the Tory party right now are in disarray. It's absolute chaos. You've got all of these warring factions, and actually to instill a leader by the time that you come around to party conference, you'd think would give that image of coming back together, of being unified, of being a strong opposition. And instead, we're looking at 3.5 months now of continued chaos whilst the Labour Party goes unchecked.
Actually, that's not what I'm feeling or hearing at all. It feels like we're already working closely together. Clearly, there's a smaller number of Conservative MPs in the House of Commons, but we're already really working hard to hold the Labour government to account. You know, hearing that from me this morning, doing interviews like this, you'll see that in the House of Commons later today. So actually, we do have already an effective opposition. We're providing that. We're determined to be a constructive opposition. We'll recognise when Labour does things right. We heard the message at the election that people wanted something different, but we absolutely will and are already holding them to account.
Have you heard the message from the election, though? Can the Tories stand there and accept what happened and why it happened? Because Suella Braverman says she withdrew from the race because she has her own thoughts, her own diagnosis of what happened at the general election, but she says the Tory party doesn't want to hear the truth out loud.
I'm absolutely confident we have heard the message from people, and I knocked on hundreds of doors during the election campaign and had therefore hundreds of conversations with people about how they were planning to vote, and spoke to people who told me that previously they voted Conservative but this time they weren't going to. For instance, they were unhappy about the infighting that went on amongst MPs rather than us always backing the Prime Minister. Many people talked about immigration and wanting to see more control of their borders, and were frustrated that we hadn't already managed to stop the boats. I spoke about some of the difficulties in doing that and how that was blocked again and again by Labour, for instance, in the House of Commons. But no, those are the sorts of messages that we heard on the doorsteps, as well all of the leadership candidates. And actually, it's an opportunity over the next months to reflect more on those messages and make sure that the new leader has a strong pitch, not only to MPs and party members, but to the whole country.
Helen, you're Shadow Secretary of State for Transport, and here's something which I suppose affects your jurisdiction. Manchester Airport we're talking about. We're going to run this this clip of the footage that has become available prior to the police officer being seen kicking the other man in the head. So let's see this. This is the stuff which led up to the kicking incident, and we see that the people who are being apprehended fighting back against the police really badly, a lot of punches being swung and whatever, and it's quite violent stuff to look at. Nobody's trying to justify what the police officer did, but you can understand maybe the way he reacted. He did lose it has to be said. What do you think? What would you like to add to what we're seeing?
Well, I mean, I've seen that video myself. It's clearly being circulated over the weekend on social media, and it does clearly provide context to what happened. But I do think that this particular incident is one that it's best for politicians not to get involved in and for it to be properly investigated. So I think that's the best that I should leave it there.
Helen Whatley, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Now, let's go to Mark White, our Home and Security Editor on this one. I mean, we've run the film. You've heard what the Shadow Secretary of State had to say about it there. What can you add to what we're now seeing, Mark?
Well, I was saying last week, context is everything. We only got a very short right at the end of events, of course, showing that man being kicked in the head and then stamped on, which looked very bad, but we knew nothing of what led up to this. And now, of course, this new video that was obtained by the Manchester Evening News does show a very violent attack on those 3 police officers. Now, just to put it in context, what had happened was that the police had received reports of allegations of a violent assault in and around Manchester Airport. They had then pinpointed a suspect in this area, standing by the ticket machines in a multi-storey car park. They'd gone up to that person. It's the one now lying prone on the ground with the light top and the blue and the light blue shorts. They'd gone up to him. I don't know if we can run it again. You can see they're behind him, and people have said, you know, they just went up to him and they punched him about the head. That's not what they did at all. You can quite clearly see they go up to him. They try to gain control of the situation very quickly.
So he does. And
yeah.
It's just why anyone thinks they can take over. There's what, three police officers there. I think one of them's a woman. Look at him. Look at him.
Yeah.
Like, incredible.
So the information they have is that the person they're looking for is wanted in connection with allegations of a violent assault. They need to gain control of that person. So they're up behind him. They then just try to get his hands behind his back to cuff him, and he's resisting. So you then see the officer grabbing his head and putting his head down. And at that point, the brother in this instance is in and starting to punch about the male armed officer. There's 2 female armed officers, 1 male armed officer.
You use the whole word context, and you're absolutely right. However, I would look at the police officer and I would say, you lost it, you went too far, you lost control there. He's still going to find it hard to come out of this smelling of roses, isn't he?
Well, I'm not prepared to go that far and categorise it as that, because I don't know what that individual officer perceived. Remember, these 2 men, we've counted it, were responsible between them for punching those 3 officers in and around the head 15 times, 15 separate punches, and that male officer received at least half a dozen punches to the head. So I don't know what kind of state he was in, concussed, confused. He was on the ground at one stage as a female officer finally got a taser shot off, which incapacitated the boy in the blue shorts. This officer fell with that young man to the ground. Now, we don't know. He immediately jumps to his feet again, and then a split second later, he kicks. Now, why he was kicking, I don't know. As I say, I'm not in that officer's head, but it was a very violent, fast-moving situation where he is armed with a firearm that he's desperate that these people who have been very violent don't get a hold of. So let's wait to see what he says if it ever gets to a prosecution. But this new video, and remember there will be body-worn video from all of those officers as well, let's see what kind of light that shines on the decision-making process for the officers. But I can tell you that there is a great deal of concern amongst the armed policing unit at Manchester Airport, with already some officers deciding that for a while at least they don't want to carry firearms because of the potential for situations to get out of control, and then with the benefit of hindsight, everybody deciding that, you know, you did wrong, making a split-second decision with what you were faced with, and now you're facing a potential prosecution. We've seen it before in the Met, when officers have been charged subsequently after shooting someone who they rightly believed you know, was a threat to them, and officers handing in their tickets.
Yeah, terrible dilemma for anybody, and you would say, why would anybody even want that job, you know, to be in charge of a firearm, or trying to protect people at an airport and being judged the way you would be judged. Mark White, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Very much appreciate your analysis on that.
Now, 15 minutes past 9, and there's still plenty of time to enjoy a massive win this summer with your chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash.
You really could be our next big winner, and here's how.
You really could become the next big Great British Giveaway winner, with your chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Listen to what some of our previous winners have to say about winning big with us.
On the day that I got the money in the bank account, everything just seemed a lot sunnier.
But I do have something to spend it on.
Just go for it. It's an absolute must.
Thank you, GBNews.
Amazing feeling to win.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Wouldn't that be wonderful? Also wonderful, Andrew Pearce, Beverly Turner. They've got Britain's Newsroom coming up at 9:30, and we'll be previewing that with them, and we'll be telling you how there are still bargains to be had if you wanted to head to the Olympics. Travel bargains, staying bargains at a hotel, and ticket bargains as well, all to come after this.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
An employment tribunal has found that a senior lawyer telling a legal secretary that she looked nice created an intimidating environment and made her feel violated.
Well, she's won her sexual harassment suit, so is saying someone looks nice acceptable in the workplace anymore?
Well, joining us now to debate this is political commentator Christine Hamilton, who thinks it should be, and author and journalist Rebecca Reid, who thinks making comments like these are unnecessary. OK, Rebecca, why is it unnecessary to tell your colleague they look nice?
Well, how somebody looks at work shouldn't be particularly important or relevant. But I think my issue here is that it's used as a sort of dismissive way to make women feel silly for complaining about things. Like, oh, it's just saying you look nice. Why does it matter? But we all know there are different ways of saying things. And if you are an older man in a position of power, looking a woman up and down and saying, oh, you look nice, in a lascivious tone, which, as far as we know, is quite possibly what happened, that's not acceptable. That's not workplace appropriate, and it would make somebody feel uncomfortable.
Christine, she's right, Rebecca, isn't she? It depends how it's said. If you've got someone who's sleazy saying, oh, you look nice, you're going to be a bit off-put, aren't you?
Yes, we don't know whether this was said in a lascivious tone or not. And as far as I can see, this particular case, the boss went too far, and he did a lot of other things as well. But what worries me is that the tribunal has ruled that just saying you look nice could be included as sexual harassment. Now, I think that is ridiculous.
Realistically, women don't make these accusations for fun. Women don't make these accusations to be difficult. They do it because they've been made to feel unsafe or unable to work in a certain place.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Well, here we are, day 4 of the Olympics. Adam Peaty had an emotional performance last night. 0.02 of a second, he lost gold to get silver in the pool. And you may think that Paris is a no-go zone because it'll be out of your reach. It'll be too expensive.
To get there. It'll be chaos, yeah.
Stay there, but oh no.
No, travel correspondent for The Independent, Simon Calder, tells us differently.
the flop. That is what they're saying in Paris because, well, frankly, there simply aren't any tourists. The latest figures we've seen are that, for instance, among Airbnbs, there's 1 in 7 which has been booked all the way through, but 22% have no visitors at all. I've been there over the weekend. It was a fantastic time to be in Paris because, well, very largely it was empty. Yes, there were lots of Olympics officials and media and quite a lot of fans, lots of French people coming in from the provinces for it. But actually, as a tourist destination, being able to breeze around, walk into pretty much any museum you wanted to, and not encountering huge queues, it was great. But the hotel I stayed in, which was about half the price of what you normally expect to pay in the summer, they just said Paris is dead. We thought we were going to get extremely rich on this. In fact, we're losing lots of money and it's a disaster. And that's borne out with lots and lots of people, whether they're driving taxis or running bars and restaurants. So great time to be a tourist, terrible time to be working in the tourism industry there.
Yes, and do you think, Simon, some people are just avoiding Paris because of the travel chaos over the weekend? We saw that Eurostar, there were cancellations throughout the weekend, wasn't there?
It was absolutely horrible. Let me take you back, of course, to the early hours of Friday morning, as you were reporting. We saw a coordinated arson attacks on 3 of the main high-speed lines in France, including the one which goes from London St Pancras International, which you can see there, through to Paris Gare du Nord. As a result of that, the trains were taking much longer. They were going around the old slower tracks, and therefore that you would find that to get to Paris, which is we're looking at here, that would take you about about 2 hours longer than normal. They couldn't get the number of trains through. Yesterday, for instance, they cancelled another 6. And I calculate that 11,000 people have now had their travel plans torn up as a result of the attack on the rail lines. Things should get back to normal today, but for a lot of people, they had tickets for events over the weekend, or even the opening ceremony, which Eamonn enjoyed so much. It's they missed that, yes. I was lucky enough. I flew over and flew back, and that was all very smooth and very easy to manage.
Thank you for that. Andrew and Bev, are you watching the Olympics? Are you enjoying the Olympics or not?
Loving the Olympics. Yeah, absolutely loving the Olympics. Although we'll tell you what we thought of the opening ceremony when we start
Is it still
our
on?
show.
Is it still on?
What, the opening ceremony?
It's finished, thank goodness.
It did go on a bit, didn't it?
It did go on a bit.
What rubbish. What absolute rubbish. People who was marvellous. It was, what's that got to do with sport?
No.
None of it. Anyway, what else will you be talking about?
We're going to be talking about this Muslim cleric who wants to buy a Scottish island and set up an Islamic utopia off the west coast of Scotland.
Imagine if we set up a Christian and utopia.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Well, I'd be there like a shot today. It's a good Catholic.
We'd be on our knees.
We would. We would be.
We're going to be looking at this this black hole in the budget that Rachel Reeves is saying is a surprise to her, apparently.
Yeah. So we're talking to the man who runs the Institute of Fiscal Studies, Paul Johnson, first time on our programme. So he'll tell us, is it or isn't it a fiction, what she's saying, Rachel?
Well, he's a good guest. He's the man that's done all the figures.
Exactly.
Punched all the numbers, which is good.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks very much indeed. We'll look forward to that 9:30, right after us now. We will see you again tomorrow, bright and early from 6 o'clock.
Yep, and up next, as you just saw, is Andrew and Bev. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Plenty of sunshine across much of the UK, turning increasingly hot over the next couple of days, particularly across England and Wales. And you can see a cloudier start across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland first thing this morning. A weak weather front is producing some rain across the far northwest, largely the Western Isles, but also fringing western coasts into the afternoon. But plenty of sunshine for the vast majority of the UK, perhaps an isolated shower across northern England, southern Scotland, but temperatures rising in that sunshine, 25 to 29 Celsius towards the southeast, low 20s further north and west. Through this evening time, this weather front does just push a little further eastwards, bringing some patchy light rain largely to the Highlands and Islands. Further east, still sunshine holding on there across eastern Scotland. Cloud also encroaching much of Northern Ireland. Some patchy rain across the west, slowly spreading eastwards. England and Wales, though, a fine end to Monday. Plenty of sunshine. Temperatures still holding up the mid to high 20s, so great for an evening walk. And then overnight, this weather front just slowly pushes its way southeastwards, loses most of its so just becomes an area of cloud. Some patchy light rain and drizzle perhaps over the highest ground. Most places dry overnight, prolonged clear spells, but this will still mean temperatures holding up generally in the mid to low double figures. So a warm start to Tuesday, plenty of sunshine across England and Wales. The remnants of this weather front perhaps just giving a little more cloud across parts of northern England later, parts of Wales. Northern Ireland also clouding over through Tuesday, perhaps 1 or 2 splashes of rain possible. Scotland also bright and sunny. In the sunshine, temperatures rising for many of us, again approaching the high 20s, close to 30 Celsius in the southeast.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Cumbria, the A66 is blocked westbound between Coupland Beck and Appleby in Westmoreland, causing queues. In Derbyshire, there are queues on the A61 southbound, where someone's broken down between the A632, Hollis Lane and the Hornsbridge roundabout in Chesterfield. Train services in Norfolk are suspended between Acle and Linwood and being diverted via Reedham because of an obstruction on the line. Gatwick Express services are suspended because of a signalling problem, with Southern suspended northbound from Gatwick Airport to Victoria. There are delays of up to an hour to DFDS sailings at Dover. In Hampshire, the A31 is partly blocked eastbound by an accident at the Fritham turnoff at Stony Cross, with queues back to the Picket Post services. And there are delays of up to half an hour with some cancelled trains between Southampton Central and Salisbury after a signalling problem earlier on. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
King Charles has launched his own aftershave, costing, wait for it, an eye-watering 135 quid for a 100 millilitre bottle, promising buyers that they can smell just like the gardens of his Highgrove country pile. Now, this is something that Meghan Markle would do, surely not the King. Is this a case of King Charles selling out, watering down the brand just like Meghan? Well, join me now to discuss this is the royal broadcaster Helena Chard. Helena, welcome to the show.
Martin,
often on this
hi.
show, we've had a pop at Meghan Markle, the Sussexers, for selling out, for flogging strawberry jam, and now the King is flogging Pong. Is this really the right royal thing to do?
Do you know what? So the joy of luxury Highgrove splash, you know, at the end of the day, Highgrove is such a special place, and the Highgrove shop sells amazing things on there. And as we know, the profit actually goes towards charity. So it's the King's Foundation, which was formed in 1986. Profits go towards educational and training, and it's all to do with this sort of sustainable world. But not to forget as well the charitable aspect and the whole ethos of the King's Foundation, and that's so important. This is not just something that's going up on the website and just being sold purely to go into someone's pocket. So I think, you know, all in all, I think everyone should have a look at the Highgrove website and see what's on for sale. I mean, there are lots of really lovely, I think, pretty fairly priced products, and even more so, go and see the gardens. You know, as we know, King Charles is a keen environmentalist, and the gardens are fabulous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, 9:30 on Monday the 29th of July, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Very good morning, it's nice to be back. So tax rises, are they incoming? The Chancellor is due to reveal what she's calling a huge £20 billion black hole in public finances this afternoon, claiming that she didn't know anything about it before now.
Yes, at 3:30 p.m. this afternoon, the blame game begins. The Chancellor will lay out how she'll lay the foundation for the future of our economy. What does that mean in practice? It means some tax rises are on the way.
Who'd have thought it? GPs are threatening to walk out. Family doctors are voting on whether to strike again. Be the first time since 1964. Can you already get a GP appointment? And would more pay for the doctors make any difference whatsoever?
And some breaking news this morning. Just up, oil activists are blocking departure gates at Gatwick Airport. We've got pictures here that you can see. Will they ever stop?
And who fancies this? An Islamic homeland. A radical British-based cleric wants to buy a small island off the Scottish coast and turn it into an Islamic state with Sharia law only for believers. What's the legal position on this? And will he be allowed to fulfil his ambition?
And as the dust settles after the election defeat, the race is now on for a new Conservative leader. It's Braverman out, Badenoch on the attack. She says she's going to fight for the top job. And some great talking points this morning. We'll tell you what we thought